Pieces shattered when massive holes tear through the sky, raining down alien junk and chaos on everyone. These portals vomit toxic matter and monsters into our world, turning cities into ruins and breeding absolute despair. Yet, among the trash, humanity finds treasures that offer a desperate hope for a better future. Warriors discover glowing weapons capable of slicing through monsters, finally giving the human race a fighting chance. They even find artifacts like flying capes, proving that these alien relics grant powers that defy all logic. Alchemical potions emerge that turn common stones into gold, completely wrecking the old world's boring economy. Even the food is top tier, offering otherworldly flavors that make our regular snacks look like trash. These relics become the ultimate prizes, auctioned off for insane prices as the world adapts to this madness. This chaos births a new profession called hunters, brave souls who dive into ruins for fame and fortune. Our boy Tumakuragane is just a trash tier E-ranker, but he's ecstatic after finally finding a mysterious relic. The raid is finally over, and the leader announces that loot distribution depends entirely on each person's contribution. Our boy Toma is left dumbfounded as he's barked at and forced to act like a lowly servant. While the real warriors grab the shiny weapons, the atmosphere is thick with greed and self-congratulation. The leader is a total stickler, even deducting pay from a guy just for eating some meat. Toma ignores the noise, staring at a vial he hopes will finally cure Suzu's mysterious illness. Suddenly, a trash-tier hunter in a tracksuit spots the vial and snatches it right out of his hands. Before Toma can even react, the thug sends him face first into the dirt with a brutal kick. The bully sneers that a pathetic porter who can't even use relics has absolutely zero rights here. The other hunters are cut from the same cloth, mocking how Toma can't even activate a basic weapon. As Toma trembles on the ground, the hunter prepares to deliver another strike, as our boy gasps in fear. The trash-tier hunters taunt our boy, telling him to go fetch his prize like a common beggar. Toma ignores their insults and walks away, fueled by a silent vow to find another relic soon. Turns out, he has a secret edge, because his unique eyes can actually see the hidden relics. He quickly spots a faint glow beneath the rubble, desperate to save Suzu no matter the cost. Later at the hospital, he prays that this latest find is enough to keep his sister alive. The A-rank doctor, Gaia, examines the rare illumination drops Toma managed to scavenge from the ruins. Toma slumps in his chair, feeling the crushing weight of the world as he waits for the verdict. Gaia explains these drops restore sight to the blind, and will cover the mounting medical bills as always. The doctor is genuinely impressed, calling Toma's talent for sensing relics absolutely wonderful, despite his low rank. Yet, Toma feels useless, knowing his talent is meaningless if he remains too weak to wield a weapon. Toma stares at the legendary elixir, wishing he could get his hands on that miracle cure. Gaia explains that it's a panacea capable of reviving the dead, but it's been lost for ages. It was supposedly found in the mysterious White Dragon ruins, though the trail has long since gone cold. Gaia admits she even became a hunter because modern medicine is trash tier compared to the power of relics. The real nightmare is the petrification disease, a magical plague that defies every known scientific law. Those infected watch in horror as their flesh slowly turns into cold, lifeless stone without any warning. Once the transformation is complete, the victims simply crumble away into nothingness, leaving only dust behind. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoes through the room as a petrified limb strikes the table in desperation. Our boy's sister, Suzu, looks on in terror as a piece of her own stone arm breaks off. Toma and the doctor freeze at the door, dumbfounded by the sight of Suzu's condition rapidly deteriorating. Toma is losing his mind, seeing Suzu's arm crumble like a piece of trash-tier pottery right before his eyes. He panics and asks what they should do, but Suzu seems strangely calm about her body literally falling apart. Suzu claims the missing weight is actually convenient, while our boy worries the whole limb might just shatter completely. Miraculously, Suzu starts feeling great, and even enjoys her food, while Gaia and Toma watch her with newfound hope. Suddenly, Toma notices his old sword pendant is reacting, pulsing with a strange light he can't quite explain. Suzu recognizes the trinket and scolds him for keeping such a useless piece of junk for 10 whole years. She calls him an absolute idiot for being so sentimental, though her expression softens as she looks at him. Their brief moment of peace is shattered when a massive, unnatural tremor suddenly rocks the entire hospital building. Chaos erupts in the hallways as patients are thrown from their wheelchairs by the violent, bone-rattling earthquake. Toma immediately leaps to shield his sister, holding her close until the terrifying shaking finally grinds to a halt. Toma and Gaia rush to the window as Suzu's voice trembles, sensing the world shifting outside. High above the skyline, the legendary dungeon ruins manifest, looking like a massive, terrifying omen. A majestic snow dragon circles the peak, its icy mana radiating through the air with a deafening roar. Gaia remembers the ancient prophecy, where the dragon's dance signals the appearance of the life-saving elixir. Our boy is absolutely floored, realizing the miracle cure he needs is finally right in front of him. But as he looks back at Suzu, the heavy silence in the room tells him something is horribly wrong. Suddenly, Suzu collapses and coughs up a pool of blood, sending Toma into a total state of panic. He screams for the doctor, terrified because these gruesome symptoms have never happened to her before. Gaia checks her vitals and delivers the grim news that the petrification has reached its final, lethal stage. Toma stands there dumbfounded as he learns his sister is officially out of time. Gaia looks down in shame, apologizing for keeping a secret from him at his sister's request. It turns out Suzu was only putting on a brave face whenever Toma came to visit her. Our boy is absolutely dumbfounded, realizing his little sister was just pretending to be healthy this whole time. He grits his teeth, cursed by the guilt of not noticing the unimaginable pain she was actually enduring. Knowing there is no other choice, Toma declares he is going to find the cure, regardless of the risk. Suzu calls out to him, her voice trembling as she watches her brother prepare for a suicide mission. She desperately begs him to stop, not wanting him to do anything dangerous, just to save her life. Toma just offers a sad smile and promises he will be back soon with the miracle she needs. He charges toward the glowing portal, his heart set on securing the elixir at any cost. As the snow dragon circles above, our boy enters the frozen ruins to start his most dangerous hunt. Toma enters the dungeon and immediately notices the lack of monsters, which feels incredibly eerie to him. He recalls his days as a trash-tier porter, carrying heavy loads and being used as monster bait. Despite the past, our boy is confident that his high stamina will help him survive this solo run. His confidence shatters when he finds a group of high-level hunters completely wiped out in the corridor. Sensing a sudden shift in the air, he realizes the enemies responsible must still be nearby. He looks down and sees a chaotic mess of footprints, suggesting a massive struggle took place here. Suddenly, a glowing blue energy path appears, pulling him forward with a force stronger than any relic. Toma wonders if something is calling out to him, as this sensation feels entirely different from normal sensing. While he is distracted by the mysterious pull, a massive green vine slithers silently toward his heels. Before he can react, a giant carnivorous plant lunges from the shadows to make him its next meal. Toma barely dodges a massive strike, realizing this plant monster is way faster than it looks. The impact shakes the very foundation of the ruins as dust and debris fill the air. Our boy finds himself completely surrounded by a nightmare fuel squad of high-level dungeon predators. He knows he can't afford to stop moving for even a second if he wants to live. If his momentum breaks, he realizes his journey to save his sister ends right here in the dirt. Pushing past his fear, he follows the glowing trail, while monsters snap at his heels from every side. The mysterious path guides him through the chaos, acting as his only lifeline in this death trap. Even as teeth and claws tear into his skin, he grits his teeth and refuses to slow down. Suddenly, he hits a wall and panics, thinking the path led him straight into a dead end. With the horde closing in, he desperately hopes his sensing ability hasn't finally played him for a fool. Toma screams with pure desperation, putting every ounce of faith into his last-ditch effort to survive. The beasts snap their jaws inches away, their predatory hunger filling the air as they close the gap. He collapses onto the cold stone floor, battered and bruised, but realizes he actually made it through. Looking up, our boy is dumbfounded to see a legendary white dragon statue perched atop a treasure hoard. He crawls forward through the gold, hardly believing he is standing before the mythical guardian of the ruins. Among the riches, a single vial catches his eye, radiating a light that feels like pure, concentrated hope. The aura coming from the bottle is unlike anything he has ever sensed, vibrating with ancient, restorative power. His hands tremble as he confirms that this legendary item is indeed the elixir he has been seeking. Tears stream down his face as he realizes he finally has the cure to save his sister, Suzu. But just as he tastes victory, a cold blade pierces his chest, turning his triumph into a nightmare. Toma is frozen in shock as Gaia leans in close, a cruel smile plastered on his face. The doctor casually snatches the elixir, mocking our boy for being the perfect, unsuspecting guide. Toma hits the floor, his blood staining the gold as Gaia stands over his dying body. Gaia admires the glowing vial, finally possessing the prize he's been hunting for years. With his life fading, Toma can only gasp out a desperate question, wondering why his doctor betrayed him. Gaia just scoffs, explaining how easy it is to manipulate people, blinded by the desperation of illness. He reveals his true nature as a trash-tier scammer who sells false hope to desperate civilians. By hiking up medical costs, he manipulated hunters into bringing him rare relics for nothing. The doctor laughs like a maniac, admitting he never had any intention of actually curing anyone. Toma stares in horror, realizing his entire struggle was just a game for this monster. Gaia laughs like a maniac, gloating about how easy it is to fleece idiots for every single penny. Our boy desperately clings to the doctor's leg, his only thought being the survival of his sick sister. Toma begs him to use the elixir on Suzu, even promising to find even better relics for him. The doctor's gaze turns ice cold as he bluntly refuses to help the girl he's already used up. He envisions a future where the sick grovel at his feet, treating him like a literal savior. Holding the vial high, Gaia declares himself a god who holds the power of life and death. He looks down with pure disgust, calling Tuma's sister nothing more than useless trash-tier garbage. Toma is completely dumbfounded by the insult, his shock quickly turning into a burning, white-hot rage. Gaia scoffs and walks away, deciding that neither Toma nor his sister are worth his time anymore. As our boy bleeds out and begs him to wait, the doctor just brushes his hair back, bored. Gaia activates a dark relic, forcing it to resonate with the surrounding mana. He rings the slave bell, calling forth a pack of flaming wolves to do his dirty work. Our boy stares in disbelief as the predatory beasts surround his broken and bleeding body. The doctor gives the cold-blooded command to devour him, leaving absolutely nothing behind. Toma screams in desperation as the monsters pounce, their jaws snapping inches from his face. A massive roar echoes from the dungeon ruins as a surge of energy shakes the entire area. Meanwhile, Suzu lies in her hospital bed, terrified that her life is finally reaching its end. As he struggles against the wolves, Toma begs for any god to listen and save his sister. Suzu prays for her brother's safety, even as the stone skin rapidly spreads across her body. Refusing to die in this trash-tier hole, Toma stands back up, determined to reclaim the elixir. Toma grips his relic with bloodied hands, swearing he won't let his sister die in this god-forsaken place. The flaming wolves close in, ready to tear our boy apart while he's at his absolute lowest. As Suzu's life fades in the hospital, Toma's desperation reaches a breaking point, fueled by their bond. He screams out that she's his only family, refusing to accept this trash-tier ending for them both. Suddenly, a mysterious spirit appears, questioning if it's love that drives his pathetic, struggling human heart. A massive wave of blue energy erupts, sending the pack of monsters flying back into the dark shadows. Toma stares up in shock, feeling a strange, divine power surging through his broken and battered body. The glowing entity stands tall behind him, leaving the exhausted porter completely dumbfounded by the sudden intervention. Looking into the blinding light, he wonders who this being is, and why they've chosen to help. The celestial figure floats before him, offering a glimmer of hope in this dark, monster-infested ruin. Toma's cross relic pulses with a blinding blue light as the mysterious spirit's power takes hold. A violent explosion of energy erupts, shattering the darkness and signaling our boy's second wind. Gaia watches in pure disbelief, his smug expression replaced by cold sweat as things go off script. A massive vortex of mana swirls around the room, trapping the monsters in a storm of divine power. To the doctor's horror, Toma stands tall, radiating an aura that definitely isn't trash-tier anymore. He grips his weapon with newfound resolve, feeling the weight of a legendary power in his hands. Tapping into the relic's true potential, he prepares to unleash the devastating infinite blade creation. With one clean strike, he carves through the air, leaving Gaia completely dumbfounded by the sheer pressure. Panicking, the doctor screams at his wolves to finish the job before it's too late, but it's useless, as the monsters are sent flying by a shockwave of pure, unadulterated strength. Toma lets out a primal roar as he manifests the spirit-forged sword, his mana finally reaching its breaking point. In a flash of blinding light, our boy obliterates the entire pack of wolves with a single, devastating strike. Gaia stares in absolute horror, unable to comprehend how a trash-tier porter is suddenly wielding such a terrifying weapon. Standing amidst the swirling energy, Toma looks like a completely different person, cold and ready for blood. He doesn't waste any time, demanding the doctor hand over the elixir he worked so hard to find. His eyes burn with a golden fury as he reminds the traitor that the medicine belongs to his sister. The weight of his sister's life fuels his resolve, making it clear he won't let the doctor escape alive. The massive hall falls silent, as the power gap between the two becomes painfully obvious to the trembling doctor. Despite the pressure, Gaia tries to laugh it off, mockingly questioning if an E-rank can even handle that power. He clings to his pride as an A-rank hunter, desperately claiming their combat experience is still worlds apart. Toma stares him down, his gaze sharpening as he prepares to show the traitor true power. Gaia laughs like a maniac, boasting about the high-tier equipment he stole from people, just like our boy. A sudden flash of energy cuts through the air before the doctor can even finish his sentence. In an instant, That expensive trash-tier armor is reduced to nothing but useless scrap metal. Gaia lets out a pathetic scream, completely dumbfounded by how his ultimate defense was just deleted. Toma stands calm amidst the chaos, knowing he has no time to waste on this bottom feeder. He demands the elixir one last time, his eyes glowing with an intensity that freezes Gaia's heart. Deep inside, his senses are reaching a boiling point, sharpening to a level he never thought possible. The secrets of the relic flood into his mind, teaching him exactly how to wield this divine blade. Gaia can only tremble from a distance, wondering what kind of monster he actually managed to wake up. Gaia is losing his mind, his greed for power finally pushing him over the edge of sanity. He decides that if Toma won't hand over the goods, he'll just have to seize them by force. The doctor reveals a gold-grade relic named Gluttony, hoping this expensive gear can bridge the massive power gap. Suddenly, the spirit whispers to our boy, suggesting he change the blade to something far more effective. She explains that burning through his own life energy is a waste when he has better options available. Toma understands the assignment and prepares to use a nearby shard to reshape his divine weapon. The true nature of the Black Sword, Aeon awakens, specializing in the total reconstruction of all things. Our boy focuses his intent, channeling energy to trigger a high-level sword creation technique. A lethal obsidian blade forms instantly, proving that Toma is finally playing in a completely different league. The spirit looks on with approval, telling him that the forging is complete and it's time to swing. Gaia screams in desperation, mockingly asking if our boy has finally run out of steam. He doesn't wait for an answer, unleashing his smiling bomb technique with his high-tier flaming dagger. A massive trail of fire erupts across the ruins, intended to incinerate everything in its path. But as the smoke clears, Toma stands perfectly still, completely unfazed by the trash-tier explosion. With the spirit's power surging, our boy prepares to show the doctor what real divine energy looks like. He swings the newly forged ion, releasing a blinding beam of blue light that tears through the air. The sheer force of the strike obliterates the surrounding structures, leaving nothing but dust behind. Gaia can only stare at the sky in pure shock, realizing his ultimate attack was just child's play. His precious gold-grade relic lies shattered on the ground, proving it was never enough to stop Toma. The doctor is left trembling and dumbfounded, finally understanding that he's messed with the wrong hunter. Gaia starts panicking, offering the elixir and begging Toma to just let him live. The trash-tier doctor bows low, desperately handing over the prize he tried to kill for. Even while groveling, Gaia's mind is racing, looking for any opening to turn the tables. Gaia tries to pull a fast one, reaching for the elixir with a desperate, greedy grasp. He suddenly finds himself paralyzed, realizing the divine pressure has completely locked his pathetic body in place. Toma looks down coldly, telling the coward that he can forgive the attempt on his own life. However, his eyes glow with rage as he declares he'll never forgive what happened to Suzu. Our boy delivers a brutal, earth-shattering blow that sends the doctor straight into the dirt. Gaia lies there, broken and bleeding, finally paying the price for his pathetic medical scams. Suddenly, a fresh swarm of dungeon monsters emerges, drawn by the scent of blood and mana. The swarm of dungeon monsters gets absolutely wrecked as Toma's divine energy erupts through the ruins. Our boy lunges forward, realizing his body feels lighter and faster than it ever has before. He pauses to confront the mysterious spirit, demanding to know who she is and why she's helping him. Toma is skeptical, questioning why such a powerful entity would suddenly decide to play guardian angel. The spirit simply explains that she has been suffering from a deep, ancient hunger for a very long time. It turns out she was actually feasting on the deep affection shared between Toma and his sister, Suzu. She describes the taste of their bond as something truly exquisite that has completely revitalized her. Our boy is totally dumbfounded, asking if she literally ate the physical origami he gave to his sister. She clarifies that she practices philophagy, meaning she is a being nourished and sustained entirely by love. Toma can only stare in disbelief, struggling to wrap his head around this bizarre, supernatural explanation. Ion explains she used the origami filled with Toma's feelings as a vessel to manifest her power. The simple paper charm morphs into a powerful blue relic, proving her claim is the real deal. Toma realizes this legendary spirit now literally lives inside a sword forged from his own sister's gift. She introduces herself as Ion, a powerful being cast out from a completely different world. Promising to be his strength for the sake of that love, she joins our boy in his desperate sprint. The narrative shifts back to the hospital, where the clock is ticking for his sister's life. Toma doesn't care about the rules, crashing through the window as the staff watches in total shock. He slams open the door to her room, praying that he isn't too late to save her. But as he steps inside, the sight before him leaves him completely frozen in pure horror. Suzu sits there in a silent prayer, but her entire body has finally turned into cold, gray stone. Tuma stands before his sister, his heart sinking as he realizes her feet are now solid, lifeless stone. His hand trembles as he touches the cold surface, the reality of her condition finally hitting him. Tears well up in our boy's eyes because she feels like ice, devoid of any warmth or life. Desperate, he fumbles with the elixir, praying that the legendary medicine isn't just some trash-tier fairy tale. He pours the glowing liquid over her petrified form, begging the universe to let his sister come back. Every drop is a plea for mercy as he cries out, unable to imagine a world without her. Tuma clings to the statue, wishing more than anything to hear her voice call him big brother again. Suddenly, a blinding light erupts from the stone, signaling that the divine energy of the elixir is working. As the gray cracks fade away, her eyes flutter open, regaining the spark of life he feared was gone. Suzu looks at him, confused and soft, leaving Toma absolutely dumbfounded and overwhelmed with pure relief. Tuma pulls Suzu into a crushing hug, sobbing because his sister is finally human again. Suzu rests against him, silently thanking the heavens that her brother actually made it back alive. High above, Aeon basks in the radiant energy released by their intense emotional reunion. She gathers a glowing orb of pure affection, finding the taste of human love absolutely intoxicating. She greets the world with a smile, realizing that human life is a precious, dreamlike miracle. Watching the siblings weep, she realizes that their bond is the most beautiful thing she has ever seen. Ion casually floats nearby, still clutching that sweet energy while observing the aftermath of the cure. She breaks the moment by wishing for Suzu's full recovery, which catches our boy completely off guard. Suddenly, she points towards Suzu's chest, hinting that the petrification might still be lingering deep inside. Suzu snaps at him in a flustered panic, calling him an idiot for staring at her so intensely. Tuma's heart sinks as he realizes the petrification hasn't actually vanished from his sister's body. Suzu delivers a swift punch to our boy's face, completely flustered by his intense staring. Aeon finds it amusing that she's invisible to everyone except her chosen contractor. Hess left dumbfounded, wondering why the legendary elixir failed to finish the job. Aeon explains that the white dragon's tears can heal wounds, but they have a major limitation. Turns out, the elixir is powerless against the dark, lingering curse of a high-tier relic. Tuma's eyes widen as he realizes his sister's condition was caused by a malicious artifact. To save her, he must track down the basilisk, the source of this stone-cold nightmare. Panicking, he demands to know the location of this cursed item to end this once and for all. Aeon tells him to relax, as the elixir bought them a few years of borrowed time. Toma feels a wave of relief, but his sister is just confused by his weird mumbling. Suddenly, a massive dragon made of blue flames erupts, shaking the very foundation of the city. People scramble for their lives as the beast begins to tear everything apart with its overwhelming power. Our boy watches from the window, completely stunned to see such a monster appearing in the real world. This is the legendary white dragon, a creature that shouldn't even exist outside of the most dangerous ruins. Aeon confirms his fears, explaining that this beast is actually the true master of the dungeon they escaped. The monster continues its rampage, turning the city into a playground of destruction while innocent people scream. Tuma realizes this beast is linked to the creator of the relic and calls out to Aeon. The spirit partner's gaze turns cold as she vows that she won't let the creature escape her grasp. Fueled by a new rage, our boy prepares to face the nightmare that is threatening his world. Our boy leaps into action, swearing he won't let this beast destroy the city he shares with Suzu. He calls out to Aeon, who promises to stand by him as long as his love remains strong. The white dragon lets out a deafening roar, its blue flames scorching the very air around the hospital. Everyone is dumbfounded, because this creature was supposed to be a harmless myth, not a city-level threat. A terrified hunter screams for S-rank backup, realizing the administration bureau has completely abandoned them. The local squads desperately try to intercept the beast, hoping their combined fire can buy some time. Turns out their trash-tier attacks are just bouncing off the dragon's scales like they are absolutely nothing. The monster's cold gaze fixes on the tiny humans, showing no mercy for their pathetic resistance. Realizing their offense is useless, the hunters scramble into a defense formation while praying for a miracle. Massive debris rains down as the front line collapses, leaving the survivors certain they won't make it out. The dragon's tail sweeps through the air, leaving nothing but blue flames and total ruin in its wake. Our boy looks down at the fallen hunters, who are wondering why they're even still alive in this hellscape. One survivor stares up in disbelief, unable to comprehend who would walk towards certain death like this. Toma stands tall against the massive beast, his yellow eyes burning with a resolve that defies his rank. A hunter recognizes him as that trash-tier porter, shocked that an E-ranker is actually standing his ground. He just gives a confident smirk and tells the pros to step back and leave the rest to him. The dragon begins charging a massive blast of blue energy, ready to erase everything in its path. Terrified, the hunters scream for him to run, convinced that no human could possibly survive this upcoming strike. Toma ignores the noise, finally feeling the weight of a relic that Ion helps him actually handle. He prepares his steel-forged sword, ready to show these elites what a real hunter can do. Toma and the elite hunters stand frozen, the sudden silence heavier than any roar. While the pros scream for a retreat, our boy realizes his big moment just turned into a dud. The massive dragon just sneers, mocking the pathetic human who thought he could actually change anything. Toma stares at his weapon, realizing the legendary relic has gone completely silent when he needs it most. The beast commands him to crawl back to the ruins, recognizing the ancient spirit dwelling within him. Suddenly, a pillar of blinding light erupts, sending the terrified hunters flying like ragdolls through the air. He hits the dirt hard, his body broken as the reality of his trash tier status finally sinks in. Desperate, he screams for Ion to wake up, clutching the useless hilt as his last hope fades. The spirit finally manifests, gently telling him it's time to give up and return to Suzu. Toma just stares back, completely dumbfounded that his only ally is telling him to walk away now. Aeon looks completely drained, leaving Toma totally dumbfounded by how haggard his savior has become. Our boy argues that his sister is in danger, but the spirit claims she can't fight while starving. Aeon dismisses his human emotions as unnecessary, focusing only on her growing hunger for energy. Toma starts sweating, realizing his only hope is more interested in a meal than a dragon. The surrounding hunters watch him talk to thin air, concluding the kid is far too defenseless. Their shields begin to shatter, proving that even their best gear is trash tier against this monster. When the dragon prepares its breath, a hunter steps up to draw its attention away from Toma. He launches a desperate projectile, betting everything on a single distraction to stall the beast. The light explodes right in the dragon's face, successfully interrupting its attempt to incinerate the area. The monster just calls them annoying gnats, effortlessly blowing the hunter back with a massive shockwave. Toma knows he must persuade the spirit immediately, or the dragon will finish them all off. Aeon looks pathetic and drained, her hunger making her far more stubborn than usual. Our boy tries to explain that the hunter's teamwork is a form of love just like his own. She just scoffs, claiming their desperate actions are merely survival instincts, rather than the energy she needs. Toma is left sweating, realizing his logic isn't working on this picky divine being. If he doesn't think of something fast, they're toast. So he shouts a desperate new theory. Aeon pauses, sniffing the air as if she's actually picking up a new scent from his conviction. He whips out his smartphone, betting everything on a digital cheat sheet to explain human emotions. The spirit looks completely dumbfounded, while reading through the various definitions of affection on the screen. Toma insists that all these feelings are cut from the same cloth and should satisfy her hunger. Aeon is absolutely floored by the claim that human love is the ultimate, untapped fuel source. He explains that love isn't just for family, but extends to friends, pets, and even the world itself. This massive revelation hits like a truck, proving that every single thing in existence is connected by energy. Aeon struggles to process it, realizing her divine race has never encountered such a complex, bizarre concept before. She finds the sheer variety of human affection so strange that she actually considers it borderline perverted. Seeing his gamble start to pay off, our boy knows this is his one chance to push through. Toma doesn't care about being called a creep. He screams that the entire world is overflowing with power. The sheer intensity of his conviction forces the spirit to finally submit to the overwhelming flow of energy. Meanwhile, the white dragon prepares its final breath, leaving the remaining hunters certain that their time is up. One hunter even laments that his upcoming wedding is definitely getting cancelled thanks to this overgrown lizard. Toma stands firmly before the trembling hunters, ready to face the dragon's wrath head-on. One hunter panics, shouting that their defensive relics have reached their absolute limit and won't hold. The groom-to-be tells his comrade to shut up and run, choosing to stand his ground instead. He sadly realizes that even if they survive, his wedding guest list is getting shorter by the second. Witnessing this raw display of self-sacrifice, Aeon finds herself genuinely moved by the beauty of humanity. As a spirit who feeds on affection, she realizes she completely overlooked the strength of these bonds. Suddenly, the white dragon unleashes a massive torrent of blue flames, threatening to incinerate everything in its path. Our boy's eyes glow with divine intent as he invokes the obsidian blade to cleave the fire apart. The hunters are left completely dumbfounded when they see the dragon's ultimate attack split clean in half. Toma lands with his new weapon in hand, satisfied that his desperate gamble for power actually worked. Ion finally understands that human connections like romance and fellowship are far more than just simple fuel sources. Our boy stands firm, his resolve hardening as he prepares to channel these newfound emotions into his blade. He becomes a shield for the remaining hunters, proving that his love for humanity is his greatest weapon. The white dragon sneers, mocking Toma for throwing away his humanity just to become a living relic vessel. Aeon stares back coldly as the beast claims that things like freedom and desire are forbidden for him. The dragon charges its blue flames, but Toma isn't backing down as he calls upon Aeon's true power. He sprints up the crumbling ruins, demanding his spirit partner make his weapon bigger, harder, and much sharper. With a roar, he leaps toward the dragon's maw, activating the steel-forged sword to end this nightmare. The impact rings out with a heavy clank, as his blade bites deep into the dragon's reinforced scales. Toma swings the massive, lightning-charged blade, determined to cut through the dragon's arrogance once and for all. Toma's blade clangs against the dragon's hide, but the scales are way tougher than our boy expected. He grits his teeth in frustration, realizing that even with his new power, breaking through is a nightmare. The white dragon just sneers, mocking his pathetic efforts and calling his struggle completely futile. Suddenly, the other hunters rally together, shouting for everyone to protect their porter at all costs. They form a human wall, using their shields to buy Toma the precious seconds he needs to recover. The hunters urge him to escape, insisting they can hold the line while he finds a way out. But the dragon isn't playing around, summoning a swarm of blue fireballs to wipe these trash-tier humans out. The group looks up in pure horror, realizing there's no way to block that many lethal projectiles at once. In his ear, Aeon whispers a game-changing hint, telling him to stop obsessing over the sword's physical shape. Toma finally gets it, realizing his ability is about material reconstruction, and that his creation is truly free. The dragon roars for everyone to turn to ash, raining down a barrage of lethal blue fireballs. Our boy doesn't flinch, tossing a simple-looking object into the air to intercept the incoming disaster. He leaps high, manifesting the unmarked creation steel umbrella as his new weapon of choice. The relic expands into a massive canopy, perfectly shielding the survivors from the dragon's explosive wrath. The hunters are completely dumbfounded, unable to believe a lowly porter just pulled off such a miracle. Blue flames crash against the steel surface, but the reconstructed material holds firm against the intense heat. Even the mighty dragon is caught off guard, staring in disbelief as its lethal attack finally fizzles out. Underneath the protective dome, the survivors finally breathe, wondering if they have actually been saved from death. They look at Toma with newfound respect, realizing this kid is definitely not the trash-tier hunter they expected. Still, the dragon sneers, mocking his broken sword and claiming his inexperience will be his ultimate downfall. Toma decides to switch tactics, commanding his weapon to revert to its original form for a direct assault. Our boy leaps high, manifesting a massive blue blade that pulses with the raw power of his divine energy. He brings the heavy steel crashing down, hoping to shatter the dragon's defenses in one decisive, brutal strike. The white dragon just glares with its cold reptilian eye, mocking his efforts as nothing more than a futile struggle. Refusing to back down, Toma screams for his weapon to transform again, pushing his material reconstruction to the limit. The blade shifts into a wicked, curved edge as he maneuvers through the air like a seasoned pro. A blinding flash of energy erupts, signaling the sheer intensity of the mana being poured into this gambit. This is exactly what he wanted, baiting the beast into close quarters where his new weapon can actually bite. The reconstructed steel collides with the dragon's hide, sending sparks flying as the two forces of nature clash. He quickly realizes the dragon's scales are harder than iron, making this a much tougher nut to crack. Toma manifests the steel-forged sword, pouring every ounce of his remaining mana into the construct. He kicks off the ground with desperate speed, knowing this is his one and only shot. Our boy leaps high, transforming his weapon into the dragon scale blade to match the beast's own power. Aeon watches in total awe, dumbfounded that a mere human could adapt so quickly with just one tip. Toma lets out a guttural roar, focusing all his hatred and love into this final, decisive strike. A massive arc of energy carves through the air, meeting the dragon's neck with world-shaking force. The white dragon can't believe its eyes as its legendary defenses are shredded by a trash-tier hunter. With a final, pathetic whimper, the massive beast collapses, its reign of terror finally cut short. Gravity finally catches up to Toma as his weapon shatters and his body begins to fail him. He hits the dirt completely spent, wondering where all his strength went as the world starts to fade. Toma is at his limit, feeling his consciousness slip away as the adrenaline finally wears off. High above the ruins, a mysterious relic structure begins to react to the massive shift in energy. Radiant beams of light suddenly pierce through the clouds, signaling a change in the battlefield's atmosphere. The fallen dragon breathes its last, seemingly apologizing for the chaos it brought to this world. Miraculous rain begins to fall, instantly mending the broken bodies of the survivors scattered across the rubble. Our boy realizes these aren't just raindrops. They're the dragon's tears, carrying the essence of the elixir. It turns out the legendary elixir's power was far more vast than anyone could have ever imagined. Toma offers a quiet thanks to his fallen foe, grateful that its final act saved his sister. With the battle finally over, he tells Aeon it's time to head back and check on Suzu. He's left dumbfounded when he sees Aeon has literally stuffed herself full with all the local love energy. Toma stands amidst the ruins, finally processing that a lowly E-rank porter like him actually slew a dragon. Word of this miracle travels fast, hitting the Japan Hunter Bureau headquarters like a literal ton of bricks. The director is completely dumbfounded, screaming in disbelief that a bottom-tier hunter could pull off such a feat. Amidst the chaos, a pair of traditional wooden sandals clack against the floor as a newcomer approaches. The guards are outraged, demanding to know who this brat is and why he is trespassing without permission. The intruder does not care about their rules, casually taking over the director's seat with zero hesitation. The staff can only watch in silence as this eccentric stranger makes himself right at home. He reflects on the massive energy he felt from the ruins, certain that Toma holds a legendary relic. This is Kiseki Hojo, an S-rank hunter who believes destiny is practically forcing him to find our boy. Toma has no idea that his victory just put a massive target on his back for the elite. A few days after the dragon hunt, our boy finally checks his bank balance and nearly has a heart attack. He stares at the 50 million yen reward, his hands shaking as he realizes his trash tier days are over. Walking through the city, he reflects on how being a hunter is actually the stuff of dreams after all. His eyes sparkle with pure joy because he can finally afford to treat his sister to a decent meal. Aeon teases him about his sudden happiness, jokingly asking if there is a little love mixed in with that money. Toma realizes that his telepathic bond with the spirit means he will never have a moment of peace again. He finally makes it home to find Suzu waiting for him, looking healthier than ever and ready to cook. It feels like a fresh start for the siblings, even if they have a divine spirit tagging along. They settle into a warm daily routine, though having an S-rank hunter like Kiseki over makes things a bit crowded. Even Aeon cannot resist the smell of Suzu's home cooking, diving into the feast with zero hesitation. Toma finally feels a sense of true happiness, offering a silent prayer before diving into a warm meal. But the mood shifts when Kiseki starts praising the food, acting like she is part of the family. Our boy is completely dumbfounded by her audacity, his face turning pale as he tries to process the situation. Between bites of rice, Kiseki casually reveals her high-ranking position within the Hunter Administration Bureau. The siblings are left in a state of total confusion, wondering if she is a colleague or a stranger. Not wanting Suzu involved in hunter business, Toma firmly asks the mysterious woman to step outside for a chat. Standing in the quiet park, he gets straight to the point and asks what she really wants from him. Kiseki drops a bombshell, mentioning she knows he has been digging around for information on a certain relic. She explains that his digital footprint at the Bureau gave him away, despite the top-secret nature of the data. The atmosphere grows heavy as she mentions the basilisk, a relic that clearly carries a dangerous reputation. Kiseki explains that hitting A rank is the golden ticket needed to unlock the Bureau's restricted relic database. Our boy is completely dumbfounded, his mind racing as he tries to process such a massive jump. She points a finger directly at him, officially granting him the right to challenge the A rank exam. Toma panics, reminding her he is still technically trash tier E rank, but she insists he is a special case. She notes that his solo subjugation of the White Dragon is an achievement that speaks for itself. He realizes that gaining this information is his best shot at finally curing Suzu's lingering petrification disease. The atmosphere shifts as Kiseki leans in, mentioning that her help comes with one very specific condition. Toma waits with bated breath, wondering what kind of high-stakes mission an S-ranker would demand from him. The tension dies instantly when she flashes a sparkling smile and asks him to lend her some money. Staring at his pathetic bank balance, Toma feels his soul escaping while Aeon casually watches his misery. Kiseki thanks our boy for saving her from being sold off to some sketchy circus troupe. She claims it is fate that her debt matches his bank balance, much to his absolute horror. They finally reach the location, but Toma is still preoccupied with his rapidly vanishing life savings. Before them lies the massive training ground where the prestigious A-rank hunter selection exam takes place. Our boy scans the crowd of examinees, feeling like a total amateur among these high-tier combatants. He starts sweating as he realizes the sheer gap in power between himself and the other hunters. Kiseki casually ditches him to greet a sharp-looking man who seems to be waiting for her. The man looks ready to kill, coldly reminding her that she is exactly 2 minutes late. Toma realizes this scary individual is the one who actually lent Kiseki the money she spent. Hakogami introduces himself as their examiner, casting a heavy shadow over the nervous group of examinees. Hakogami explains that they need a new A-rank hunter to fill the void left by a recent vacancy. The crowd starts whispering about the infamous Dr. Hunter Kiria, wondering how such a powerhouse could just disappear. Toma finally connects the dots, realizing that the trash-tier villain he crushed was actually a high-ranking A-rank hunter. Hakogami smirks, claiming that strict quotas don't matter when you're dealing with monsters of pure talent. He declares that he's willing to promote every single person here if they can prove they're worthy. The examinees celebrate their luck while Kaseki watches the chaos unfold from her comfortable spot in a tree. She just smiles to herself, thinking that the examiner is certainly acting like a big shot today. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the examiner signals that the games are officially beginning. A massive energy field erupts around the group, trapping everyone inside a high-stakes arena. Hakogami sets a 5-minute timer, challenging them to simply stay standing within the circle to pass. Hakogami lays down the law, telling the crowd they either need to push him out or beat him. Some of these trash-tier hunters actually think this is just a simple game of sumo and start smirking. He clarifies that his current body is just an avatar, so they can go all out without holding back. While the mob gets hyped, our boy Toma stays locked in, knowing this won't be a walk in the park. He realizes using his high-tier dragon blade is too risky here, so he opts for something more subtle. Toma summons his steel-cutting blade, ready to show these guys why he's cut from a different cloth. With a chilling look behind his glasses, the examiner officially gives the signal for the chaos to begin. Suddenly, the avatar moves like a blur, sending hunters flying before they can even process what happened. One poor soul gets launched clear out of the ring, proving that talent alone isn't enough here. The survivors stand dumbfounded as they realize they've barely lasted 5 seconds against this absolute monster. The hunters are completely dumbfounded, but our boy Toma stays calm while the examiner blitzes through the arena. Hakogami sighs in disappointment, noting how pathetic it is that these guys rely entirely on their flashy relics. He remembers trash-tier hunters like Gaia Kiria, who bought their way to A-rank but were actually small fry. While most here meet the basic requirements, he knows the current standard is far too low for real danger. To him, an A-rank failure means millions of lives lost, and he refuses to let history repeat itself. With a cold glare, he makes it clear that he personally won't allow any weaklings to pass today. The pressure is suffocating, leaving the remaining examinees trembling as they realize the true gap in power. High above in the Bureau headquarters, the higher-ups watch the broadcast, already predicting a total wipeout. They admit that while the candidates are technically strong enough, Hakogami's logic is hard to argue against. The director explains that Hakogami actually possesses S-rank strength, choosing to remain a gatekeeper for the elite. Hakogami's standards are so impossibly high that he filters out everyone like a sieve that's far too fine. He moves like a ghost, systematically crushing every hopeful candidate without letting a single soul pass his test. The arena turns into a graveyard of broken dreams, as the remaining hunters realize they never stood a chance. Being the top-ranked A-rank hunter isn't just a title. For Hakogami, it's a duty to gatekeep the weak. However, a B-rank hunter named Hayate Kinmochi wonders if an avatar at 10% power can actually stop him. He isn't just talk, suddenly manifesting a massive blade that radiates an overwhelming, blinding heat across the field. The crowd is dumbfounded, instantly recognizing the legendary gold-grade weapon relic he just pulled out of thin air. Our boy Toma notices the aura is on a whole different level compared to Gaia's trash-tier equipment. With a roar, Hayate charges forward, putting every ounce of his spirit into a strike meant to shatter the examiner. He unleashes the hero's epic Nibelungen, a devastating blow that forces even the legendary gatekeeper to take him seriously. Hayate's massive gold-grade strike is stopped dead in its tracks by a tiny, unassuming knife. Hakogami doesn't even break a sweat, holding back the legendary blade with just a flick of his wrist. Our boy Hayate is left completely dumbfounded, as his ultimate move fails to even budge the examiner. The surrounding hunters can't believe their eyes, wondering how a trash-tier silver relic could block a gold-grade weapon. Despite the size difference, the power dynamic is clear, as Hakogami treats the massive sword like a mere toy. Refusing to accept defeat, Hayate prepares to pour every last drop of his mana into one final gamble. Suddenly, he catches a glimpse of something terrifying that makes his blood run cold and his heart stop. Without another word, the once confident challenger turns his back and walks out of the ring in total silence. The crowd is left reeling, unable to comprehend why Head just give up when he seemingly had the advantage. Only Hayate knows the truth, realizing that the examiner's weapon wasn't a silver-grade relic at all. Hakogami reveals that his tiny knife is actually a high-tier relic disguised as a trash-tier tool. The other examinees are left shaking, realizing they've been completely outclassed by a mere kitchen utility. Hayate grits his teeth, refusing to accept that his pride was shattered by such a small blade. Ultimately, he chooses to retreat, knowing that throwing his life away now won't fix his broken weapon. Hakogami notes that knowing when to fold is a skill most trash-tier hunters never bother to learn. Now it's our boy Toma's turn to step up, and he isn't showing a single hint of fear. He reveals his true motive, needing that A-rank title to track down a legendary relic called the basilisk. Tightening his grip, he prepares to unleash the divine energy he's been suppressing to stay under the radar. No matter how grueling the path ahead, he won't stop until his sister's future is finally secured. Hakogami smiles, sensing a burning conviction in Toma that makes every other candidate look like a joke. Toma blocks the strike, but the sheer force of the examiner's avatar sends vibrations through his entire arm. Hakogami moves like a blur, his speed making it nearly impossible for a normal hunter to track him. The two exchange a flurry of blows, turning the exam hall into a chaotic battlefield of steel and sparks. Our boy realizes that fighting this guy is like standing in the middle of a literal typhoon. Kiseki watches closely, noting that there are only 2 minutes left for Toma to prove his worth. Hakogami is actually impressed, acknowledging that Toma's raw attack speed might even surpass his own. By constantly reconstructing and transforming his blade, Toma manages to parry every single lethal strike thrown his way. The examiner notices that Toma hasn't let his guard down for a second, even against his tricky relic. Deciding that a mere knife isn't enough to test Toma's potential, the examiner discards his current weapon. He summons a much more powerful relic, prepared to see if our boy can survive a real fight. Our boy is caught completely off guard when a sudden surge of lightning erupts from the examiner's new relic. The clash is intense, with electricity dancing across the floor as Hakogami unleashes his true S-rank level power. Toma grits his teeth, feeling the numbing shock travel through his arms as he barely holds his ground. He is forced back, his boots skidding across the concrete while he desperately tries to find an opening. Looking at his weapon, he realizes his iron-wrought blade is at a total disadvantage against this elemental energy. His eyes widen as he tracks the examiner's movements, seeing the silhouette of a monster standing before him. Hakogami towers over him with his spear, wondering if the exhausted porter finally has the sense to back down. Instead of quitting, Toma lunges forward with everything he has left, refusing to let his dream end here. The examiner watches through his tinted glasses, acknowledging that while Toma is tenacious, the power gap remains massive. Even as he hits the dirt, our boy clings to his blade, knowing he still has one last card. Toma screams he isn't backing down, his yellow eyes burning with a newfound, desperate resolve. Even the stoic Hakogami is dumbfounded as our boy prepares to unleash a technique called swordless creation. Suddenly, a massive blade forged from blue flames and dragon scales manifests, radiating an overwhelming divine pressure. Hakogami stands his ground, questioning if Toma truly intends to keep pushing against such an impossible power gap. Toma just roars back that he won't back down, his spirit refusing to break despite his exhaustion. He grips the dragon scale blade tight, ready to prove that a trash-tier porter can reach the top. Watching from the shadows, the bureau staff can't believe a mere examinee just pulled out a gold-grade relic. The observers start panicking, questioning if this mysterious black weapon is a completely new species of relic altogether. The director watches intently, his gut telling him that something far more significant is unfolding on that screen. He realizes with a shock that this black relic might actually be something ranked way beyond gold grade. Toma and the examiner face off as the tension in the arena reaches a breaking point. Our boy realizes his steel-cutting blade is useless now, forcing him to rethink his entire strategy. He remembers how the iron in his old gear just invited the examiner's lightning to strike him. With his obsidian blade being unreliable and his spirit-forged sword failing, he's out of options. He knows this dragon scale blade is a one-shot deal, and failing means it's game over. With his back against the wall, Toma decides to bet his entire future on a single strike. He lunges forward, clashing against the examiner's lightning-charged spear in a shower of sparks. The impact is massive, and Toma feels the crushing weight of an elite hunter's true power. Even if he avoids the lightning, every single blow feels like a mountain crashing down. Suddenly, he notices the examiner's pace is dropping, giving him the tiny opening he needs. Kushi realizes his massive spear is a double-edged sword, becoming harder to handle as the fight drags on. He notices Toma's blade has transformed, yet our boy isn't making a move, just watching and waiting. The examiner quickly catches on that Toma is betting everything on a single, high-stakes strike to end this. As Toma stays low, Kushi remains on high alert, knowing the kid is just hunting for the perfect moment. Our boy locks his yellow eyes onto a tiny gap in the defense, ready to risk it all. He finally lunges forward with everything he has, thinking he's found the golden ticket to victory. But the air suddenly crackles with electricity, and Toma realizes he might have just walked into a trap. Kushi calmly reminds him that jumping blindly at an opening is exactly how trash-tier hunters get killed. A massive bolt of lightning tears through the arena, engulfing our boy in a blinding, high-voltage explosion. The surrounding examinees scramble in terror as the sheer force of the elite hunter's power levels the ground. Kushi admits the dodge was decent, but claims that kind of effort is only acceptable for B ranks. He warns our boy that if there were actually lives on the line, he'd already be a corpse. Toma barely catches his breath as the blast behind him proves the examiner isn't pulling any punches. Watching from the sidelines, Kiseki notes there are only 30 seconds left before the exam officially ends. Our boy grits his teeth in frustration, feeling the suffocating pressure of an opponent he just can't reach. He realizes Kushi is simply too overwhelming, making every desperate struggle feel like a trash-tier effort. Suddenly, Ion manifests and scolds Toma for getting sloppy and losing his touch with her power. As Kushi lunges again, she explains that relics run on a special energy she calls aura drive. She reminds him that just holding a relic grants a small blessing, but he's barely scratching the surface. Toma braces for impact, realizing he needs to master this energy fast or he's definitely going home. Aeon explains that by manually drawing out aura drive, the examiner's physical abilities reach a whole new level. Toma struggles to keep up, wondering if he even has the talent to pull off such a feat. Ion just sighs and points out that our boy was actually already using it without even realizing. A massive shockwave erupts as the power gap between the two hunters becomes painfully obvious. The force sends Toma skidding back, his body screaming from the intensity of the examiner's relentless assault. Wiping blood from his lip, he listens as Ion reminds him of his previous life-or-death struggles. She mentions his desperate clash with the corrupt doctor, where he pushed his limits just to survive. Even the white dragon fell to his sheer imagination, despite him having no formal training in energy manipulation. Kushi stares him down, warning that trash-tier efforts won't be enough to overcome his overwhelming spear techniques. Aeon watches the clash, admitting that the examiner is right about Toma needing to evolve right now. Toma focuses his intent, channeling every ounce of his remaining energy into a single, concentrated point of power. Aeon whispers for him to imagine his sister standing right behind him, fueling his desperate will to protect. He remembers Suzu's prayers, realizing that her safety is the only thing that truly matters in this world. Suddenly, a violent burst of golden mana erupts, signaling that our boy has finally found his second wind. Emerging from the smoke, Toma is wreathed in blue flames, ready to turn his memories into raw strength. Kushi watches in silence, clearly dumbfounded by the sudden and massive spike in the kid's combat aura. Multiple spectral blades manifest, each one flickering with the same intense blue fire that once scorched the heavens. Their weapons collide with a deafening boom as Toma finally forces the examiner to take him seriously. The sheer force of their clash carves a massive crater into the earth, sending shockwaves through the arena. The other examinees scramble for cover, terrified as the ceiling begins to rain down heavy debris upon them. Kushi adjusts his glasses, completely dumbfounded by the sheer weight of the mana pressing against him. Our boy stands tall, his body overflowing with blue flames as he prepares to unleash everything he has. Aeon watches from the sidelines, knowing that the power of love has finally pushed Toma past his limits. He feels lighter than air, realizing he can now strike with a speed that defies all logic. The spirit goddess just smiles, satisfied that her vessel has finally embraced his true potential. Kushi struggles to keep up, wondering how on earth this kid suddenly became such a monster. It turns out Toma mastered aura drive manipulation in seconds, a feat that took the examiner 5 years. Kushi's eyes widen as he realizes he's finally found someone truly worthy of carrying the A-rank burden. Toma's yellow eyes burn with a new intensity, proving he's no longer just a trash-tier porter. Their final clash sends a shockwave through the arena, leaving everyone wondering what just happened. The bureau staff can't even track the movement on screen, realizing Toma is about to clear the impossible. The director leans in, trusting his gut feeling that this supposed trash-tier porter is something else entirely. He realizes that against all odds, our boy might actually survive the gatekeeper's final onslaught. The other hunters are losing their minds, screaming for the kid to pull off the ultimate upset. With only 5 seconds left on the clock, the arena turns into a blur of steel and divine energy. They trade blows at a speed that breaks the sound barrier as the final seconds tick away. Suddenly, both warriors freeze, sensing a new, darker presence creeping into the exam grounds. Without a word, they both bolt from the arena, leaving the exam unfinished to face the real threat. The remaining examinees are left dumbfounded as the timer hits 0, and an unnatural darkness swallows the field. Kiseki just smirks at the examiner, asking if the monster she recommended lived up to the hype. Kushi finally admits he has no choice but to acknowledge our boy's insane potential and growth. He shares a knowing look with Kiseki, realizing the exam is the least of their worries now. A massive, pitch-black hole tears through the sky, signaling that a trash-tier disaster is looming over them. Toma sprints through the woods with Ion, ditching the arena to find the source of the disturbance. He skids to a halt when he spots a flickering green flame that reeks of pure, unadulterated malice. The energy feels exactly like the dark, ominous presence that nearly claimed Suzu's life in the past. Our boy stumbles upon another examinee, who looks like he's just seen a ghost in the woods. The guy is completely rattled, barely able to process the nightmare unfolding right in front of his eyes. Tuma scans the area and realizes the other hunters who were just competing are in serious trouble. Turns out Hayate has been turned to stone, proving the petrification plague is back with a vengeance. The blue-haired examinee warns Tuma to stay back, claiming a rogue monster must be responsible for the petrification. Tuma remains silent, his yellow eyes scanning the area as he senses a foul energy coming from the man. Our boy doesn't mince words and asks the stranger straight up if he is actually a living relic. Even Ion looks completely dumbfounded, wondering why Tuma would suddenly make such a bizarre and heavy accusation. Toma focuses his senses, recalling the unique weight and pressure that only a high-tier relic can emit. He realizes the purple energy swirling around the hunter is far too dense to be simple human mana. The examinee tries to play it off as a joke, asking if the kid has finally lost his mind. Tuma refuses to back down and rephrases his question, asking if the man is actually a legendary basilisk. The hunter's face twists into a sinister grin, wondering how a trash-tier human could possibly know that secret name. Tuma lunges forward with a burst of power, demanding the creature change the petrified hunter back to normal. Tuma roars for the monster to release the petrified hunter immediately, as he closes the distance with lethal intent. The mysterious examinee just smirks, his purple aura flaring up as if he finds our boy's struggle amusing. He brings down his blade with everything he has, calling out the creature's true identity as a basilisk. The hunter seems genuinely surprised that a mere human could identify his ancient race so easily. Their powers collide with a deafening boom, sending massive shockwaves through the forest as Tuma gives it his all. Suddenly, the examinee stops the divine blade cold, gripping the sharp edge with nothing but his bare hand. Tuma is completely dumbfounded, unable to believe that his weapon was neutralized by such raw, overwhelming strength. The creature casually tells him he has the wrong idea, looking completely unbothered by the divine energy. No matter how hard he pulls, Toma realizes his sword is stuck fast, as if caught in a mountain. The monster admits to the petrification, but clarifies that he isn't actually the legendary basilisk Tuma thinks he is. Tuma is left reeling, his mind racing as he tries to process the monster's cryptic words. The fake examinee inspects the blade, admitting he's never seen a relic quite like this one before. Suddenly, his expression shifts as he catches a whiff of a familiar, disgusting presence emanating from the steel. He realizes the truth and mocks Aeon, asking if she actually turned herself into a mere weapon. The creature creates distance, leaving our boy on edge as the tension in the forest reaches a breaking point. He starts playing mind games, questioning what kind of chaos would actually benefit a legendary basilisk the most. Toma breaks out in a cold sweat, finally certain that this freak is directly linked to the petrification plague. Just as things get serious, the monster plays dumb with a goofy grin, acting like he has no clue. His playful mask drops instantly, replaced by a murderous intent that makes the very air feel heavy and suffocating. Before Toma can even blink, the monster is inches from his face, whispering a cold promise of certain death. Tuma meets the attack head-on, his blade glowing with signature blue energy as they trade heavy blows. The trash-tier examinee goes into a total frenzy, hoping a barrage of strikes will finally break our boy's guard. While they clash, Aeon manifests and realizes there is something deeply wrong with the enemy's jagged, golden blade. She identifies the cursed weapon as the Forbidden Sword Spider Blade, a relic that reeks of ancient, forbidden malice. Turns out this freak isn't just a hunter. Aeon warns Tuma that the man himself is actually the relic. Just like her, a personality from within the weapon has somehow hijacked a physical body to walk among humans. Aeon suspects the legendary basilisk has done the same, leaving Toma absolutely dumbfounded by the scale of this threat. Enraged, our boy demands to know why they are turning innocent people into stone statues for their twisted games. The monster just shrugs it off, claiming he is merely a pawn following the basilisk's dark, inevitable commands. When Tuma asks for a body count, the villain finds the question cruel, as if he stopped counting long ago. The villain mocks Tuma's anger, asking if he even remembers how many lives he's plucked away like trivial hairs. Seeing his sister's suffering used as a joke makes our boy snap, refusing to let this monster mess around. Toma lunges forward with a desperate strike, his blade glowing with the weight of his righteous fury. Their weapons collide in a shower of sparks, but the monster just laughs, claiming he's impossible to cut. Aeon reminds him that high-tier relics are built to endure, while the villain mocks her for her own design. Deciding to get serious, the freak doubles his lethality by manifesting a second jagged blade from his twisted soul. He rains down a flurry of strikes, mocking Toma for struggling against just a single edge moments ago. Our boy is completely dumbfounded when the second blade, Torres, reveals its true, soul-crushing power. Suddenly, a massive thunder spirit waltz erupts, a golden cyclone of electricity that threatens to swallow the entire battlefield. Toma can only watch in awe as the sheer scale of the Alfheim technique tears through the very air. The freak is stunned that our boy actually knows the true name of his soul-bound relic, Torres. Toma screams for the examiner to watch out, but Hakabue is already locked in, his eyes cold and focused. Without missing a beat, the gatekeeper lunges forward, his staff whistling through the air with lethal intent. He unleashes the thunderclad chaotic dance, a high-tier technique that turns him into a blur of golden lightning. A flurry of strikes rains down on the villain, each one hitting with the force of a crashing mountain. Yet, Hakabue realizes the monster's skin is unnaturally tough, making him wonder what kind of trash-tier trickery this is. The psycho just grins, mocking the examiner's speed, while boasting that Torres moves like his very own flesh. He easily parries the staff, revealing that dual-wielding high-rank relics is just a warm-up for a monster like him. Looking closer, Hakabue senses something is fundamentally wrong. Realizing his opponent might not even be human anymore, suddenly, the freak manifests 4 blades at once, leaving the veteran examiner completely dumbfounded by the overwhelming power. Hakabue keeps the pressure on, but the villain's movements are way too smooth for a normal hunter. Watching the chaos, Aeon realizes this freak was just playing around during his earlier scrap with Toma. Our boy Toma isn't about to sit this one out, charging back into the fray despite the danger. Aeon screams for him to wait, but Toma is already mid-air, blinded by his need for answers. He figures that while the psycho is busy with the examiner, he can finally land a decisive blow. Toma is desperate to make him spill everything he knows about the basilisk, no matter the cost. Sensing a massive spike in energy, Aeon desperately tells him to fall back before it's too late. But the villain just flashes a trash-tier grin, revealing that his true weapon, an anthem, is finally ready. Suddenly, the ground erupts as lethal chain blades burst forth with terrifying speed and precision. Toma finds himself trapped within an 8-blade relic, realizing too late that he just jumped into a meat grinder. Toma is completely caught off guard as the lethal trap closes in on him with blinding speed. Blood sprays everywhere as the blades find their mark, but it turns out it's not our boy's blood. Hakogami threw himself into the line of fire, shielding Toma from a strike that would have been fatal. The examiner coughs up blood, realizing his remote avatar has finally reached its absolute breaking point. He laments that Toma's tunnel vision nearly got him killed, reminding him he forgot a hunter's primary duty. Standing tall, despite the damage, Hakogami explains that a true hunter always protects those standing behind them. Even with blood dripping from his mouth, the examiner's resolve is unshakable as he stares down the villain. Toma can only watch in silence, finally understanding the massive gap in their mentalities and experience. Hakogami officially promotes him to A rank on the spot, but warns that his clone is rapidly fading away. He tasks Toma with holding the line for 5 minutes until his true body can finally arrive. Hakogami places a hand on our boy's shoulder, telling him it is finally his turn to protect others. As the clone dissolves into blue sparks, he leaves Toma with the weight of an official A-rank promotion. The trash-tier villain looks down at the kneeling hunter, finding the lack of a real challenge completely boring. He prepares to slaughter everyone who knows his secret, starting with the boy left defenseless in the grass. The sentient relic lets out a maniacal laugh, fully intending to turn the entire exam into a graveyard. Watching through the drone, the director and his staff are dumbfounded by the sudden turn toward total disaster. Toma clenches his fist, realizing his tunnel vision and selfishness almost cost him everything. Visions of Suzu and his allies flash through his mind, reminding him he can't be protected forever. He knows he must cure his sister, but first, he has to crush the monster standing in his way. With his eyes glowing with divine energy, Toma resolves to protect the duty Hakogami just entrusted to him. Aeon questions why the relic Ananthem took a human form, sensing a deeper mystery behind the transformation. She explains to our boy that every blade he manifests through swordless creation carries a specific, lethal trait. By grasping the dragon scale blade, Toma prepares to utilize the unique properties of his divine reconstruction. The two stand together in a burst of mana, ready to show this trash-tier villain true power. The crazed examinee laughs, surrounded by his floating daggers and fully intent on cutting Toma down. He taunts Toma for being distracted, telling him that overthinking in a duel is a one-way ticket to hell. The monster unleashes a whirlwind of chains, forcing Toma to defend against an overwhelming storm of steel. Our boy hits the dirt hard, realizing that his current pace won't even last him another 5 minutes. He stares in pure disbelief as he senses the massive spike in the enemy's murderous intent. The vessel lunges with the weight of 20,000 strikes, aiming to crush Toma once and for all. The clash begins with a screech of metal as Toma barely deflects the first lethal strike. Suddenly, the vessel strikes from a blind spot, catching our boy completely off guard and vulnerable. Toma is dumbfounded as 6 blades manifest at once, boxing him into a deadly corner. He barely manages to leap away as the heavy chains shatter the ground where he just stood. Even with his speed, the trash-tier villain's relentless assault leaves Toma bleeding from several shallow cuts. The vessel mocks him, asking if he really thinks a little strategy can bridge their massive power gap. He realizes these chain blades aren't just weapons, but an extension of the monster's own twisted will. Toma skids across the dirt, his stamina reaching its limit as he struggles to find an opening. Looking up, he sees the enemy looming over him, like a god of death with blades ready. Our boy knows he has to steel himself or this exam will become his final resting place. Toma deflects the incoming chain blades, his movements a blur as he fights to stay alive. The trash-tier villain watches with a cold smirk, unimpressed by our boy's desperate struggle. Toma narrows his focus, funneling his energy into his vision and arms to track the impossible speed. He realizes that even this divine power has a limit, acting like a chain that binds his potential. If he can just find the weak link in the enemy's formation, he knows he can end this. The vessel laughs at his resolve, sending another wave of steel to crush his spirit. Toma is forced into a turtle-up defense as the chains rain down like a metallic storm. Sweating and cornered, our boy refuses to back down even as the pressure becomes suffocating. The villain acts offended that Toma is still standing, his ego bruised by the persistent resistance. He reveals a grotesque, scaly power in his arm, mocking Toma's efforts as nothing more than half-baked. Aeon watches the chaos unfold, realizing that the enemy still hasn't revealed the full extent of his power. She remembers how Toma previously unlocked his relic's hidden skills, wondering if he can pull off another miracle. The trash-tier vessel decides he can't risk waiting for reinforcements and resolves to end our boy right now. He manifests a massive, spiked blade that looks like it was forged in the deepest pits of a dungeon. The weapon pulses with accursed energy, its serrated edges ready to tear through any defense Toma raises. With a savage roar, the villain swings the heavy steel down, aiming to crush Toma into the dirt. Toma's eyes widen in shock as Aeon's voice echoes in his mind, telling him the time has come. The vessel's face twists into a predatory grin, convinced that his next strike will finally finish the job. Standing right behind him, Aeon warns that this is the make-or-break moment for his very survival. As the massive blade descends, Toma prepares to bet everything on one single, decisive countermove to stay alive. The impact sends shockwaves through the air as our boy barely holds his ground against the trash-tier vessel. Toma grits his teeth, his blade vibrating violently from the sheer weight of the monster's relentless assault. The villain cackles with predatory glee, screaming for Toma's puny defense to be shaved down to nothing. Sweat pours down Toma's face as he realizes his arms are reaching their absolute breaking point. His boots skid across the cracked earth, leaving deep furrows as the pressure becomes completely unbearable. Every muscle in his body screams in protest, making him fear he can no longer support his weight. Suddenly, a flicker of a memory catches his eye, momentarily distracting him from the impending doom. A heavy weight settles in his chest as the shadows of the past begin to manifest around him. He looks back to see the petrified remains of Hayate, a grim reminder of the cost of failure. A voice from his soul echoes, reminding him that this time, he must be the one who protects. Toma's boots skid across the dirt as he curses his inability to stop the crushing weight of the attack. Our boy grits his teeth and refuses to lose, even as that trash-tier blade grinds against his reconstructed weapon. He lets out a desperate roar, pouring every drop of mana into his arms to keep from being overwhelmed. The crazed examinee just sneers, mocking him by saying that sheer guts won't be enough to survive this struggle. Suddenly, the villain freezes, his eyes widening behind his glasses as he senses something shifting in the mana flow. He looks on, completely dumbfounded, as Toma's blade begins to glow a deep, ominous red amidst the blue flames. Within his soul, Aeon appears and calmly offers to teach him the secret of how dragons breathe their fire. She explains that dragons rub their scales together, converting every external impact into a massive reservoir of power. Toma finally realizes that his dragon scale blade is cut from the same cloth, designed to store kinetic energy. He understands the mechanic is the accumulation and release of impact, turning his enemy's own strength against them. The trash-tier villain finally realizes he's in deep trouble as his instincts scream at him to run. Aeon doesn't waste a second, shouting for our boy to swing his blade and finish this fight now. Toma lets out a primal roar, activating his dragon-scale blade to unleash all that stored-up kinetic energy. The release is absolute, triggering a massive explosion that catches the arrogant examinee completely off guard. Enveloped in the white dragon's flames, Toma looks like a true monster as he pushes past his limits. His reconstructed blade bites deep, finally cracking the sentient relic that thought it was invincible. The villain is left dumbfounded, unable to comprehend how a mere porter is shattering his ultimate weapon. Toma pours every ounce of his remaining mana into the strike, refusing to let his enemy push back. The pressure is too much, and the examinee screams in agony as his arm begins to give way. With one final, devastating surge, our boy shatters the enemy's blade into worthless scrap metal. Toma plants his foot firmly, grounding himself to unleash the absolute peak of his reconstructed dragon power. A massive spiral of blue-tinged flames erupts, turning the entire arena into a literal furnace of divine energy. Our boy swings with everything he has, activating the reverse scale to punish the villain for his arrogance. The dragon scale blade triggers its release, blasting the examinee back with the force of 1,000 strikes. The trash-tier villain can only scream, as the overwhelming pressure begins to tear his physical form apart. Toma doesn't let up for a second, driving the blade home until the enemy's defense completely disintegrates. Shattered into worthless fragments, the examinee falls, realizing too late that he picked a fight with a monster. Silence finally returns to the ruins as Toma stands alone over the smoldering remains of his defeated foe. He collapses to his knees, gasping for air while his body screams from the sheer strain of the technique. This secret trait allows him to store every impact he receives, returning that pain to his enemies tenfold. Toma stares at his trembling hands, realizing that without his aura drive, his bones would be complete toast. Our boy isn't finished yet, approaching the trash-tier examinee to demand every scrap of info on the basilisk. Even while coughing up blood, the defeated hunter mocks him, asking if he really expects a confession now. The villain laughs, claiming he'd never sell out his comrades because they're all cut from the same cloth. Toma loses his cool, screaming at the monster for turning innocent people into stone without a second thought. Suddenly, purple cracks spread across the examinee's face as he smugly whispers that his time has finally run out. The enemy's body begins to crumble into dust, leaving Toma dumbfounded as his only lead starts to vanish. As he fades, the vessel reveals that the basilisk already knows Ion has manifested as a powerful relic. He warns that the organization is definitely coming for the spirit, and there's nowhere left for them to hide. With a final vow of revenge, the examinee disintegrates completely, leaving behind nothing but a lingering sense of dread. Toma stands there completely dumbfounded as the only guy with answers turns into purple trash-tier dust. As the last of the vessel fades, the chilling promise of the basilisk's revenge hangs in the air. Aeon remains silent, her expression unreadable as she stares at the spot where their enemy just disintegrated. Our boy finally breaks the silence, asking his spirit mentor what that monster meant by seeking revenge. She drops a bombshell, revealing that she was the one who actually forged every single weapon relic. To make these blades resilient, she admits a heavy price was paid, one life for every single edge. It turns out her world was once crawling with monsters that threatened to wipe out everything in sight. They used those blood-soaked relics to fight back, successfully protecting countless lives from the endless slaughter. Eventually, their civilization found a way to banish the beasts into dimensional holes, ending the nightmare for good. But once the war ended, Aeon was heartlessly discarded into that same abyss alongside her now useless weapons. Toma is left completely dumbfounded as the weight of Ion's tragic past finally starts to sink in. He tentatively asks if she harbors a deep-seated hatred for the world that heartlessly threw her away. Instead of answering, Aeon kneels before a shattered blade fragment, her silence speaking louder than any words could. As she touches the shard, she senses the lingering traces of a love that once belonged to Annihilation. A wave of painful nostalgia washes over her, reminding her of a gentle feeling she thought was lost forever. Her mind drifts back to the day the monsters breached their defenses, leaving them with no conventional options. Annihilation knew he wasn't the smartest guy, but he understood that saving their comrades required an ultimate sacrifice. Aeon could only watch in silence, her heart breaking as her friend prepared to pay the iron price. With a fearless grin, our boy Annihilation entrusted his very soul to her, eager to become her strongest edge. Now she finally understands that he didn't just become a relic for war, but out of pure, selfless love. Toma sits in the quiet aftermath, while Aeon acknowledges that the nightmare is finally over. Our boy is absolutely spent, but Ion confirms he successfully took down the trash-tier monster. Suddenly, the legendary Hakogami appears, looking like he just stepped out of a high-stakes brawl. Toma is dumbfounded by the man's insane aura, realizing this is the examiner's true, overwhelming power. Hakogami admits he rarely expects much, but Toma somehow managed to exceed every single expectation. He surveys the absolute carnage left behind, clearly impressed by the sheer scale of the battle. Looking at the petrified remains of Hayate, the gravity of the situation finally starts to sink in. Hakogami tells him to drop the formalities because Toma is officially an A-rank hunter now. With a rare, genuine smile, the veteran hunter gives our boy the recognition he truly deserves. Toma can barely process the news, sitting there in the dirt, completely stunned by his new status. Toma is overwhelmed with gratitude, thanking the veteran for the life-changing promotion. Hakogami helps our boy to his feet, reminding him that the real work starts now. Meanwhile, in a hidden dungeon, a mysterious warrior complains about the sudden move to new ruins. He stands before the terrifying Lord Basilisk, reporting his arrival amidst a swarm of massive beasts. Suddenly, a sea of blood-red spider lilies blooms, signaling a dark and ominous shift in power. The warrior apologizes for the secrecy, explaining he wanted their new home to be perfect for the Lord. Lord Basilisk looks out over the endless field of flowers, noting their ranks are only going to grow. The follower mentions a shocking update, revealing that Aeon has finally been turned into a mere relic. Basilisk finds the news wonderful, pleased that the ancient spirit is now just like the rest of them. The warrior then asks if they should return to their old haunts to erase any lingering traces. Lord Basilisk decides there is no need to return anywhere, opting to drop the ruins and destroy the nation. His white-haired follower is absolutely loving the chaos, thinking this massive sky hole is going to be a festival. The Dark Lord radiates a terrifying green aura, clearly ready to unleash a disaster that puts everything to shame. A massive, square-pupiled eye opens within the darkness, watching the world below like it is a trash-tier playground. Ethereal blue roses begin to bloom across the sky, marking the start of a show that nobody asked for. Back on the ground, Hakogami tells our boy they need to secure the petrified remains of the Grand Duke. Suddenly, the ground begins to groan with a heavy thud, leaving Toma completely dumbfounded as the atmosphere shifts. A colossal dungeon starts manifesting in the sky, dwarfing the city below with its sheer, overwhelming size. Toma realizes this thing is 20 times larger than the White Dragon ruins and starts to feel the pressure. Hakogami explains that the sky hole size equals its danger, realizing this is far beyond a city extinction event. The sky turns into a country extinction nightmare, but Hakogami tells our boy not to panic just yet. Suddenly, a massive blast of energy shatters the ruins, signaling that a true monster has finally arrived. A mysterious voice sighs about how much of a pain this is, sounding completely bored by the chaos. The figure drifts through the debris, complaining about the lack of loot after searching every single corner. Toma and Ion are left completely dumbfounded as they watch the massive dungeon get blown to absolute smithereens. Hakogami realizes that the person responsible is none other than the legendary powerhouse they've all been waiting for. It turns out this is Kiseki Hojo, the unpublicized #1 S-rank hunter and the strongest in the world. Our boy can't believe the cheerful girl he met before is actually such an insanely powerful elite. As she lands, she casually praises Toma for surviving the exam and taking down that trash-tier humanoid relic. Toma can only stammer out a thank you, realizing he just met the absolute zenith of the hunter world. Kiseki leans in and tells our boy she's taken a real liking to him and needs a favor. Suddenly, she flashes a blinding smile and asks to borrow some cash, completely killing the serious vibe. Kushi looks ready to facepalm as Kiseki quickly drops the act, admitting she was just messing with him. She explains they've been scouting the globe for top-tier talent, just like the elite gatekeeper standing right there. Locking eyes with Toma, she claims he's cut from the same cloth and destined for something truly massive. Our boy is left completely dumbfounded when the world's strongest hunter personally invites him to join her alliance. She extends her hand again, making it clear that she wants him specifically to be part of her clan. Despite the insane offer, Toma bows respectfully and turns her down because his sister's recovery is his only priority. Kiseki doesn't seem offended at all, instead giving him a look that says she respects his unwavering loyalty. Toma turns to Kushi and expresses his deep gratitude for all the help during this absolute nightmare of an exam. Toma mentions the legendary sword Balmung and hopes an elixir can finally fix their current situation. Kushi reveals the bureau salvaged essence from the White Dragon, which is music to our boy's ears. Toma waves goodbye, reminding the elite examiner to pay back that debt as soon as possible. Kiseki is shocked that a high-ranking examiner like Kushi actually borrowed money from a rookie candidate. She isn't actually mad, though, simply brushing it off as part of a much bigger plan. Looking at Toma's departing figure, she feels like his sudden appearance was written in the stars. With a confident smirk, she tells Kushi to just watch how much this kid is going to grow. Kiseki suddenly blasts off, leaving Kushi to reflect on how her wild nature hasn't changed at all. He remembers when she first scouted him years ago, offering to form a clan under the sunset. Kushi grumbles about her dirty tactics, realizing he's been caught in her whirlwind since the very beginning. Kushi nurses a massive headache, wondering what kind of chaotic trouble that wild woman is cooking up now. As the sun dips, Aion asks if he's truly fine with rejecting such a high-tier offer. Toma admits being scouted felt great, but he knows his current journey is a solo one. He considers the perks of a clan, like sharing meals, but his priorities are elsewhere. Aion sees right through him, noting that his sister's safety is the only thing on his mind. His goal remains unchanged. He must find the basilisk to ensure his sister is cured for good. He reflects on the battle, questioning how that vessel managed to turn powerful hunters into literal statues. Aeon explains that basilisks are masters of venom, and petrification is their most lethal tool. She warns him that since the basilisk was once worshipped, many more dangerous followers are likely lurking. Realizing the world is full of enemies like that vessel, our boy knows he must get stronger. Toma begs Aion for training, but she explains that their vastly different senses make direct guidance nearly impossible. She offers a deal to consider it if he satisfies her hunger, so he suggests Suzu's home cooking. Our boy finally makes it back to the apartment just as the sun begins to set over the city. Upon entering, the silence is deafening, and they both realize Suzu is nowhere to be found in the house. While Toma assumes she just went shopping, Aeon notices a suspicious note left behind on the dining table. It turns out, Suzu was scouted by Kiseki's clan, and has already left to make her official hunter debut. Toma is absolutely dumbfounded, and calls Kiseki a rotten, money-grubbing debt king for taking his sister. He demands Aeon track Suzu's unique energy signature, and despite her pride, the spirit agrees to help him. They track the scent to a massive, ancient tower, realizing Suzu must be trapped somewhere inside that looming dungeon. Toma rushes in only to find Kiseki Hojo waiting, looking like she expected him all along. Kiseki Hojo is genuinely impressed, noting how Suzu mastered her new weapon with terrifyingly natural talent. When our boy demands to know where his sister is, Kiseki casually mentions she's already soloing a dungeon. Toma's blood boils, as he asks why she would ever drag an innocent girl into this mess. With a smug grin, the Zenith admits that Suzu was just the bait to lure him there. Fed up with the games, Toma activates his swordless creation, ready to cut through the nonsense. He lunges forward with a steel-cutting blade strike, but Kiseki isn't one to be caught off guard. She effortlessly deploys an iron cage to stall him, keeping the distance between them perfectly maintained. Using her flying cloak to hover out of reach, she continues to toy with him like a pro. Toma realizes he is wasting precious seconds on this trash-tier distraction, while his sister is in danger. He ignores the hunter and sprints toward the dungeon entrance, desperately calling out for Suzu. Kiseki suddenly whips out an alchemy potion and applies it to her blade, while our boy watches in confusion. Before he can even blink, a massive shockwave erupts, sending Toma tumbling backward as the ground shatters beneath him. In a bizarre turn of events, she starts feeding him mysterious snacks that she claims are from another world. Toma is left completely speechless, finding the otherworldly food surprisingly delicious despite the chaotic circumstances of their fight. The peaceful moment ends instantly when she catches him off guard, slamming him back into the dirt with ease. While he struggles to catch his breath, she rants about the selfish elite who hoard the privileges of relics. She reminds him of the absolute carnage, where monsters slaughter innocents and turn entire cities into blood-soaked ruins. Looking toward the horizon, she declares that her ultimate goal is to erase the whole from this world forever. Her gaze turns solemn as she confesses that her only true desire is to save the world from destruction. Toma sits there dumbfounded, realizing that the Zenith is looking at a much bigger picture than he ever imagined. Toma admits to himself that he isn't some noble hero like the Zenith expects him to be. Even with his newfound power, he knows his priorities are far more personal than saving the entire world. If it came down to a choice, our boy would pick Suzu over everything else without any hesitation. Suddenly, Suzu herself comes running up, excitedly bragging about how she just soloed a dungeon raid all alone. Toma is completely dumbfounded until she shows him her phone, revealing she was just playing a mobile game. He realizes the Zenith actually set her up with this game, while she asks about his real-world battles. Suzu looks at him with pure admiration, truly believing that her brother's mission to save humanity is incredible. She mentions how everyone in her gaming clan wanted to thank him for taking down that terrifying dragon. Seeing her so proud makes him realize that his actions are already inspiring people he hasn't even met. She pokes his chest, reminding him that while the world needs him, she's still his worried little sister. Suzu hands him a small sword charm, softly asking him to just come home for dinner every once in a while. Toma is genuinely moved by the gesture, realizing how much his little sister actually worries about his dangerous life. Suzu gets all shy and tells him to ditch that trash-tier origami, while Aeon senses her hidden sisterly affection. Suddenly, the Zenith jumps in and teases our boy for being a total sister-con who puts family before everything else. Toma is completely dumbfounded by her sudden closeness, as she gives him a knowing, playful look that he can't escape. She explains that her clan has always been built on people just like him, who fight for their personal bonds. Kiseki truly believes that if everyone protects their own small world, the entire planet will naturally be saved as well. She extends her hand one last time, officially asking him if he's finally ready to join her elite hunter clan. Our boy doesn't need to think twice, showing a confident smirk, because he finally knows where he belongs. He accepts the offer with a respectful bow, ready to start a new chapter alongside the world's strongest hunter. Suzu gives our boy a playful shove, cheering him on as he prepares for his next big move. Kiseki watches with a satisfied grin, knowing she finally secured the most promising talent in the game. Suddenly, Hakogami delivers a comical smack to the Zenith's head, completely shattering her cool and collected vibe. She whines about his rough treatment and apologizes for the sketchy scheme she used to recruit the porter. Hakogami reassures Toma that his elite clone will stay behind to keep Suzu safe from any lingering threats. Hearing that a top-tier hunter is babysitting his sister, our boy can finally breathe a sigh of relief. He tries lecturing Suzu about safety, but she reminds him this dungeon is already under strict bureau control. Kiseki introduces the new Dream Team, pairing Toma up with Hakogami's squad for the upcoming mission. The stakes skyrocket as monstrous arm-like relics begin manifesting worldwide, led by that trash-tier vessel from the exam. Toma realizes the world is changing fast and knows he can't afford to stay weak any longer. Toma is fired up, realizing that he absolutely needs to get stronger to survive the coming storm. Kiseki gestures toward the dungeon, offering our boy a special one-night training session to boost his stats. She flashes a confident grin, promising to make him 3 times stronger if he follows her lead. The Zenith reiterates that just one night of her elite guidance is all it takes to level up. She looks him dead in the eye, guaranteeing that he'll leave that ruin with triple his current power. This is exactly the shortcut Toma was looking for, and he clenches his fist in pure anticipation. He remembers how that trash-tier vessel nearly ended him and vows never to be that helpless again. With fire in his eyes, Toma officially puts himself in Kiseki's hands for the grueling night ahead. Suddenly, Hakogami steps in and asks Kiseki if she really thought he just came here to watch. He insists on being the one to train Toma, leaving the Zenith completely dumbfounded and annoyed. Kiseki and Hakogami trade petty barbs over who has the better claim to Toma, bringing up old debts. Watching the two legendary hunters bicker like children, Suzu is left totally dumbfounded by the ridiculous display. She eventually suggests they simply train him together, a compromise that instantly silences the two hot-headed masters. The duo loves the idea, though Hakogami immediately plans a hellish regimen with absolutely no breaks for our boy. When Kiseki questions if he'll survive, Hakogami just shrugs and suggests keeping him on a constant potion drip. With a predatory look that promises nothing but pain, they tell Toma his nightmare training starts right now. Our boy is shaking in his boots, pathetically begging them to go easy as he realizes he's doomed. Suzu just waves him off with a smile, wishing him luck while he's being dragged toward his training. Far away at a luxurious estate, the atmosphere shifts as news of a potential new recruit begins circulating. The elite squad members inside are already curious, wondering if this newcomer is actually cut from the same cloth. Inside the Zenith's estate, Ryuga and Mikuto discuss the bottom-tier A-ranker who somehow survived Hakogami's brutal exam. Ryuga is clearly offended by the hype, crushing his phone while wondering how a mere rookie could be compared. Mikuto just laughs it off, genuinely hoping the rumors about this guy having S-rank potential are actually true. The mood sours instantly as Ryuga demands to know if Mikuto thinks this trash-tier newbie is actually stronger. Poor Mikuto realizes he's poked the bear, letting out a terrified shriek as Ryuga's temper finally boils over. Ryuga drags his comrade along, ranting about how he would have crushed Hakogami's exam if had been tested. When Ryuga impatiently asks where the new guy is, Mikuto points out that their target has already arrived. With a predatory grin, Ryuga decides to show the rookie exactly where he stands in the food chain. He bursts into the room, ready for a fight, shouting for the newbie to shut his mouth. Instead of a rival, they find our boy Toma looking like a literal ghost after Hakogami's first training session. Our boy Toma is looking like a literal zombie, shaking uncontrollably after surviving Hakogami's hellish training session. Ryuga and Mikuto are completely dumbfounded, wondering what kind of torture could leave a hunter in this state. Hakogami casually introduces Toma as the newest squad member, while Aeon watches over her exhausted vessel. The rookie tries to offer a polite greeting, but he's so physically depleted he can barely form words. Hakogami reveals he had to inject a potion directly into Toma's veins, just to keep him conscious. The duo realizes the training was so brutal that Toma couldn't even manage to swallow medicine normally. Since Hakogami has a separate assignment, he orders the veterans to take Toma along and start field training. Ryuga immediately starts complaining, desperately wanting the dangerous mission, instead of babysitting a half-dead newbie. Hakogami gives him a cold stare, warning the hothead not to overestimate his own trash-tier ego. With his orders delivered, the examiner vanishes in a burst of lightning, leaving the dysfunctional group behind. Ryuga is fuming, cursing Hakogami for being a mere A-rank who dares to give him orders. He turns his venom toward our boy, calling him a literal rag, and demanding they get things straight. Toma is completely dumbfounded, wondering why this guy is suddenly treating him like trash-tier garbage. Ryuga flexes his ego, reminding the rookie that he's an S-rank while Toma is just bottom of the barrel. He lounges back, making sure the power dynamic is clear before they even start their field training. The hothead screams that he is the superior being, and demands Toma burn that fact into his skull. Suddenly, Mikuto jumps in with a bright smile, welcoming Toma to the squad with infectious energy. She starts rambling about the legendary dragon ruins, leaving our exhausted hero totally overwhelmed by her geeky enthusiasm. Mikuto insists they drop the formalities while Ryuga just stands there, visibly annoyed by her bubbly personality. She spots the black relic and loses it, begging to be the one to document this incredible discovery. Toma realizes Mikuto is a total relic geek, while Ryuga fumes over being treated like a background character. Ryuga snaps and grabs our boy, aggressively asserting that he is the superior hunter in this dynamic. Toma simply agrees to keep the peace, though his lack of spirit leaves the hothead feeling completely unsatisfied. Ryuga finds the lack of resistance boring, while Toma wonders how he's supposed to survive this training. They finally head toward the mission, with Mikuto trailing behind and begging the boys to wait up. Aeon manifests to analyze the squad, sensing a peculiar energy she identifies as a form of love. She quickly corrects Toma's assumptions, sensing that Ryuga isn't as cold-hearted as he portrays himself to be. It turns out the arrogant hunter carries a scent of devotion that is remarkably similar to Toma's own. They arrive at a massive tower ruin, though Toma worries this mission might be a bit too mundane. Mikuto senses his doubt and explains that even these neglected ruins are vital to their world-saving duties. Aeon warns Toma that, when a ruin stays active too long, it breaches, and monsters spill out everywhere. She explains that these disasters happen simply because the difficulty is way too high for normal hunters. A group of trash-tier hunters tries their luck, desperately attacking a beast with everything they have got. The sextuplets actually think they have won, bragging about their teamwork like they are some big shots. Their celebration is short-lived as a whole swarm of nightmare fuel suddenly surrounds the dumbfounded squad. Panic sets in when they realize their prized gold-grade relic is completely useless against these high-level threats. Just as a massive beast dives in for the kill, the hunters realize they are completely outmatched. Suddenly, Ryuga steps in with a burst of flames, proving he is cut from a much different cloth. He looks back at the trash-tier squad and tells them to quit hunting and find a part-time job. While the fodder runs for their lives, Ryuga prepares to single-handedly wipe out the entire monster swarm. Ryuga unsheathes the purgatory Masamune, a blade that radiates a level of heat these monsters cannot handle. He unleashes a massive flame slash, instantly turning the surrounding nightmare fuel into nothing but piles of ash. The trash-tier squad flees in total panic, finally realizing they were never cut from the same cloth. Our boy Toma stands frozen, completely dumbfounded by the overwhelming gap between a regular hunter and a true elite. Mikuto explains that Ryuga utilizes a natural energy type, comparing it to the legendary power of their examiner. Ryuga stands tall among the falling debris, thinking that while his power is simple, it is undeniably absolute. A surviving beast roars in defiance, spitting out a barrage of energy orbs to take him down. He mocks the creature's pathetic struggle, effortlessly dodging the projectiles while calling its final effort completely useless. Toma and Mikuto realize the stray shots are flying right at them, leaving them with no time to move. Mikuto frantically searches for a tool relic, hoping she can pull out a miracle before they get toasted. Mikuto pulls out the yellow dragon compass, finally finding the right tool to save their skins. She triggers the cardinal rotation, sending out a flurry of golden energy beams to intercept the threat. The beams slam into the beast with a heavy thud, shredding through its defenses in an instant. As the monster shrieks in agony, Mikuto exhales, surprised that her quick thinking actually paid off. Our boy Toma is left speechless, realizing just how insane the members of the Zenith's alliance really are. Ryuga just smirks, mocking the idea of an A rank keeping up while Mikuto tells him to play nice. Toma grips his hilt, refusing to let himself be outdone by these high-tier monsters or his new teammates. He prepares to put his brutal training to the test, his eyes burning with a new level of focus. With a roar, he unleashes his swordless creation, manifesting a massive flaming blade to end the fight. Hakogami observes the training, noting that swordless creation is a top-tier skill due to its incredible versatility. Our boy Toma collapses in exhaustion, barely managing to thank his mentor after a grueling session. The flashback reveals how Hakogami pushed Toma's control over his guiding power to a near-passing level. To master the craft, Toma had to learn to absorb various materials like wood and dragon scales. Hakogami explains that the dragon scale blade must stay charged to fire off its most powerful move instantly. Toma realizes that activating the reverse scale requires him to first withstand a massive, bone-shattering impact. Suddenly, Hakogami's avatars surge with lightning, challenging him to block a strike that looks absolutely lethal. The resulting explosion leaves Toma dumbfounded as he witnesses the terrifying scale of the power he's mastering. Back in the present, Toma ignores the swarming monsters and prepares to unleash his perfected ultimate technique. He swings the massive, flaming dragon-scale blade, ready to turn these trash-tier pests into piles of ash. Toma unleashes a blinding pillar of divine energy, completely vaporizing the surrounding trash-tier mobs in one go. As the dust settles, our boy catches his breath amidst the absolute carnage his new technique just created. Mikuto is practically vibrating with excitement, claiming she has never seen a skill pack that much raw heat. Toma remains humble despite the destruction, reminding her that this massive power is currently just a one-shot deal. Ryuga is absolutely losing his mind, screaming that he refuses to acknowledge a former porter's sudden rise. He accuses Toma of ripping off his signature blade, though our boy insists he didn't copy a thing. Ryuga keeps trash-talking his rank jump, while Toma snaps back about the hellish struggle he actually endured. Mikuto tries to play peacemaker before deciding a good old-fashioned contest is the only way to settle this. The terms are simple. Whoever bags the ruins boss first is the undisputed winner of their little spat. Ryuga demands a week of servitude, but Toma just wants a simple apology for the constant disrespect. Ryuga complains that someone already wiped out the trash-tier mobs, leaving him feeling utterly bored and unsatisfied. He scoffs at the ruins' difficulty, convinced his own S-rank power is more than enough to solo it. The group reaches the treasure vault, but Toma feels something is off since the boss hasn't appeared yet. While they joke about the boss being accidentally vaporized, Mikuto suddenly feels a bone-chilling cold grip the room. Our boy and the others freeze up as a massive surge of murderous intent floods the entire hallway. Icy claws click against the stone floor as a terrifying presence manifests out of the freezing mist. A massive frost-covered beast looms over Ryuga, radiating a level of power that makes the air feel heavy. The sheer pressure of the creature's aura leaves the trio completely dumbfounded and unable to move a muscle. Ryuga finally snaps and swings his blade, desperate to strike, before the monster can tear them all apart. To their absolute shock, the beast vanishes into thin air the moment the attack connects, leaving only frost. Mikuto feels the icy breath of the beast and realizes she's in way over her head. Ryuga tries to play it cool, but our boy Toma knows this thing is far from normal. Suddenly, Mikuto's comms device buzzes with an urgent and unexpected message from the communication room. The voice on the other end sounds frantic, ordering the team to abandon the mission and withdraw immediately. Mikuto is completely dumbfounded, struggling to process why they are being told to run away right now. Back at the bureau, analysts realize this monster is identical to the one that destroyed Hawaii years ago. That single beast moved so fast it froze an entire volcano before any hunters could even react. The staff types frantically as they realize their initial threat assessment was a total disaster. This isn't just some trash-tier boss. It's Flak, a legendary monster capable of wiping out entire nations. Mikuto's heart sinks as the terrifying reality of a nation annihilation class threat finally sets in. The Bureau orders an immediate withdrawal, calling in Hakogami to bail them out before things get even uglier. As the nation-level beast looms over them, the sheer pressure of its presence makes the air feel heavy. But Ryuga just scoffs at the order, his ego far too massive to let this prey escape his grasp. He refuses to rely on a teacher's help, convinced his S-rank status makes him the ultimate predator here. Our boy tries to step up, but Ryuga shoves him aside, determined to take all the glory himself. The monster doesn't care about his pride, letting out a roar that shakes the foundations of the city. In a flash of pure violence, Flak strikes with a speed that defies its massive, crystalline frame. The impact is absolute, sending both hunters crashing into the dirt as their defenses shatter instantly. Lying in the rubble, Ryuga's overconfidence vanishes, as he realizes he's just another victim of this legendary nightmare. Mikuto can only watch from a distance, paralyzed by the sight of his elite teammates being crushed easily. Mikuto is losing his mind, completely dumbfounded by the sheer power gap between them and the beast. He frantically begs the examiner to hurry up before they all end up as frozen snacks. Suddenly, a massive icy claw looms over him, making it clear that death is only seconds away. Ryuga and our boy jump into the fray, their blades cutting through the air to stop the slaughter. While the two warriors stand their ground, the legendary predator stalks forward, ready to finish the job. Toma realizes with a chill that the monster's speed is actually on par with his mentor's lightning. Despite the blood on his face, Ryuga's ego remains unshaken as he welcomes the freezing challenge. Mikuto has seen enough and screams for a total retreat, his survival instincts finally kicking into overdrive. Ryuga just roars back, demanding his teammates stop being a coward and provide some actual backup. Terrified, Mikuto bolts like a trash-tier runner, dropping his gear while praying for a miracle to save them. Toma tries to talk sense into Ryuga, insisting they need to team up to survive this icy mess. Ryuga shuts him down instantly, mocking our boy as a mere ragdoll while rejecting the teamwork. He believes that if he can't solo this beast, his rank will never climb to the top. Steam hisses off his skin as he pushes his fire-based mana past its absolute breaking point. He unleashes a torrential firestorm, fueled by his desperate ambition to finally reach the #1 spot. The ice wolf effortlessly weaves through the flames, leaving Mikuto dumbfounded by the monster's insane agility. Ryuga just grins like a maniac, figuring speed won't matter if he simply incinerates the entire room. He doubles down on the heat, cutting off every possible escape route for the crystalline predator. Mikuto panics about being cooked alive, but Ryuga tells the coward to quit whining and handle it. Toma watches the chaos, realizing that if they want to win, they need an attack even faster. Toma realizes it is finally time to pull out his trump card to end this chaotic fight. He recalls Hakogami warning him that shaping raw, formless energy without a physical blade is nearly impossible. During their brutal training sessions, our boy struggled just to grasp the core of that chaotic power. His mentor promised to forge him a special blade body if he could just survive the process. Back in the heat of battle, Toma closes his eyes and focuses every ounce of his willpower. Golden lightning erupts around him as he forces his mana to stabilize despite the immense physical strain. He reaches into the storm, desperate to capture the nucleus and mold it into a lethal weapon. His eyes burn with intensity as he fights to keep the volatile energy from blowing up. With a roar, he finally triggers the swordless creation, manifesting a power that defies all logic. Even as the shockwaves settle, Toma stands firm, ready to show this beast what true reconstruction looks like. Toma grits his teeth, focusing every nerve to seize the core and shape it into a lethal blade. He forces the volatile energy to bind, refusing to let the reconstruction slip through his fingers. Amidst the roaring flames, our boy finally triggers his swordless creation, shocking his elite teammates. He manifests the roaring thunder blade, a weapon of pure divine lightning that illuminates the entire dungeon. Anantheme is completely dumbfounded, realizing this former porter is playing in a league of his own. Toma enters a thunder-clad state, his body vibrating with the same chaotic power his mentor once demonstrated. The massive crystalline beast growls, sensing the shift in power as Toma prepares for a decisive strike. A massive explosion of mana rocks the arena, sending shockwaves that nearly knock the S-rank hunters back. His physical form glitches under the strain, pushing the limits of what a human vessel can endure. As the dust and debris settle, the onlookers can only watch in silence at the sheer destruction. Toma stands his ground against the massive crystalline beast, his body radiating a blinding golden heat. The monster lets out a deafening roar, but our boy doesn't even flinch as the battle reaches its peak. Mana surges around him like a storm, signaling that he is about to unleash something truly game-changing. Ryuga is absolutely losing it, telling Mikuto to focus her aura drive just to keep up with Toma's speed. He stares in disbelief, finally recognizing the legendary technique that is manifesting right before his very eyes. It is Vanaheim, the signature move of Hakogami, proving Toma is truly cut from the same cloth as his mentor. Hakogami watches from the sidelines, impressed that his student managed to shape raw thunder into a functional blade. He explains that Vanaheim is a high-level art of bioelectric manipulation designed for absolute speed. By pumping currents through his muscles, Toma gains hyper-reflexes while using electromagnetism to maintain perfect control. Suddenly, he becomes a golden blur, circling the beast with high-speed movements that leave the monster completely dumbfounded. The beast lets out a desperate roar as it realizes the golden blur is closing in way too fast. Its crystalline defenses shatter into a million pieces, unable to withstand the sheer pressure of the coming storm. Ryuga and Mikuto can barely shield their eyes as the frozen wasteland erupts from the impact of Toma's speed. Our boy weaves through the monster's tail, swipes like a ghost, leaving nothing but afterimages in his wake. Even though the beast towers over him, Toma doesn't flinch, knowing his next move will end this farce. He plants his foot firmly, channeling every ounce of mana into a single, explosive burst of kinetic energy. He realizes the true value of Vanaheim isn't just dodging. It's about concentrating power into a lethal point. With eyes glowing like a true predator, he prepares to pierce through his enemy like a bolt of lightning. He unleashes the roaring thunder flash rend, a vertical strike that cuts through the monster's very soul. The beast is left with a gaping hole in its chest, finally falling to the hunter who mastered lightning. Toma stands over the fallen beast, the silence of the frozen wasteland confirming his overwhelming victory. He catches his breath, realizing that the sheer intensity of the battle pushed his limits further than ever. Suddenly, a violent surge of electrical backlash rips through his body, catching him completely off guard. Our boy screams as the raw divine energy overflows, proving that mastering this power comes at a price. He collapses to the ground, his muscles screaming while he desperately tries to stabilize his fractured mana. He realizes that spamming such a high-tier move is impossible without more brutal training to toughen his vessel. In the back of his mind, Aion and his mentors acknowledge that he's finally becoming a true monster. Ryuga and Mikuto stand frozen, unable to believe a former porter just soloed a nation-destroying class boss. Toma turns toward the stunned duo, his presence now carrying the weight of a top-tier hunter. He flashes a cheeky grin, reminding them that since they lost, it's time to pay up on their promise. Ryuga desperately tries to save face, claiming his blade was the only reason the boss couldn't escape. He is absolutely fuming, threatening to turn our boy into a pile of ash for the perceived disrespect. Toma offers a deal to cancel the slave contract if the hothead stops with the trash-tier insults. Mikuto calls him out for being a sore loser, reminding him he is the one who picked this fight. Ryuga begrudgingly admits Toma has real skill, but he still can't help throwing out a seaweed-themed nickname. Our boy is genuinely offended, realizing he hates this new nickname even more than being called a rag. The argument heats up as Ryuga accuses him of stealing their mentor's signature moves through blatant plagiarism. Mikuto finally loses her patience and shoves them apart, tired of their petty bickering during a mission. She reminds the duo that the dungeon is about to collapse now that the boss has been cleared. They need to move fast because the real prize is waiting inside the treasure vault before everything vanishes. Mikuto is absolutely losing it because she's finally stepped into a treasure vault worthy of a nation-destroying class ruin. The place is literally overflowing with rare relics, making her feel like she's hit the ultimate jackpot. Ryuga remains unimpressed, claiming his legendary blade is the only partner he needs among this trash-tier pile. Our boy picks up a small vial, but the sight of so much wealth triggers a sudden, bitter memory. He remembers his days as a lowly porter, breaking his back for scraps while only ever taking one relic. Mikuto snaps him out of it, geeking out over a rare doubling potion and a set of elemental orbs. She starts stuffing everything into her 100-fold bag, a high-rank tool that makes hoarding massive loot look easy. Toma admits she really knows her stuff, while Ryuga finds her obsession with shiny trinkets completely unbelievable. When asked about her main weapon, Mikuto explains that her famous yellow dragon compass is actually just a tool. She sheepishly confesses that while she owns a proper weapon relic, she still hasn't mastered using it yet. Mikuto gets way too hyped, insisting she explain the massive gap between tool and weapon relics to our boy. She dives into the lore, explaining how tool relics are basically just refined monster scraps like fangs and fluids. Toma mentions the white dragon's tears fit that description, leaving Mikuto completely dumbfounded that he actually knows something. She continues her lecture, describing special rank tools that can power entire nations, or even manipulate time itself. When she mentions how a single drop of elixir is worth a fortune, Aeon somberly reflects on Suzu's past. Mikuto notes that weapon relics are a total mystery, yet they all seem to share one singular, mysterious creator. Little does she know, the actual creator is standing right there, impressed by how sharp this girl really is. Looking around the massive vault, Mikuto realizes it's bizarre that not a single weapon relic is in sight. Even Aeon starts getting a bad feeling, sensing that something is seriously wrong with this supposedly loaded dungeon. Ryuga finally loses his patience, telling her to quit the yapping so they can finally get moving. Mikuto is having a total meltdown over meat choices, while Ryuga just wants her to shut up. As they descend the stairs, Mikuto brags about her new tool relics, making her an unstoppable support. She promises to carry the next fight, though Toma and Ryuga aren't exactly holding their breath. Suddenly, the ground vanishes, and the trio is launched into a void that defies all logic. Gravity becomes a suggestion as they tumble through a cosmic expanse, completely losing their bearings. Our boy Toma looks to Aeon for answers, but even his spirit mentor looks deeply unsettled. Aeon realizes they've stumbled into a nightmare, calling this the absolute worst-case scenario for them. Turns out they've been dumped into the sky hole, a trash-tier dimension where reality goes to die. A massive purple beast lunges from the vortex, ready to turn our heroes into its next meal. Toma is left dumbfounded, as he realizes they aren't just facing one monster, but an entire army. Ryuga is ready to brawl, but Toma wonders how they can even swing swords without any solid ground. Ryuga tries to slash anyway, but the lack of friction makes his movements look completely reckless. Our boy Toma realizes that without a floor to push off of, they're basically sitting ducks. Ryuga snaps and tells Mikuto to use her utility relics, since she's the expert at running away. Mikuto just panics and begs the guys to handle it, her eyes swirling in total terror. Fed up with the stalling, Ryuga decides to take matters into his own hands, or rather, his feet. He literally boots Mikuto right into the swarm, making Toma look completely dumbfounded. Mikuto screams as she's launched toward the hungry mob, her life flashing before her eyes. The flying monsters close in, sensing an easy meal as she flails helplessly in the void. She cries out that it's totally unfair, as she prepares to become a trash-tier snack. Mikuto panics, realizing she is dead meat if she does not find a way to fight back alone. She desperately grabs the exploding eye, a trash-tier relic bomb that is usually useless against real monsters. With a scream, she hurls the orb toward the swarm, praying for a miracle to save her skin. The low-grade relic bounces harmlessly off the thick hide of a massive, elephant-like beast. It detonates in a flashy burst of fire, but the impact feels more like a firecracker than a weapon. As the smoke clears, the monster stands tall, completely unfazed by the pathetic attempt at an attack. Ryuga scoffs at the failed explosion, but our boy Toma notices something the others missed. The monsters pause, confused by the tiny blue orb still floating ominously in their midst. Suddenly, the single eye begins to pulse and multiply, weaving a glowing web of mana between them. A massive chain reaction begins, as dozens of eyes link up, turning a weak relic into a deadly trap. The monsters find themselves surrounded by a sea of glowing orbs, realizing too late they've walked into a trap. The once pathetic relic begins to pulse with overwhelming mana, proving that even trash-tier items can be deadly. Mikuto decides to go all out, using her multiplier medicine to turn a single orb into an endless swarm. A series of massive explosions rips through the dungeon beasts, turning the entire battlefield into a fiery graveyard. Our boy Toma catches Mikuto as they tumble back, praising her for the brilliant and efficient combo. While the group catches their breath, Ryuga wonders what their next move should be in this chaotic space. Aeon interrupts their celebration, pointing toward a massive structure floating in the distance that catches Toma's eye. She explains that the red ruin ahead is their best bet for finding a way back home. The spirit reminds him that these ruins function just like the ones he dropped into the human world before. Toma stares at the distant fortress, wondering exactly how they're supposed to reach it while floating in midair. The trio plummets through the chaotic void, screaming as they finally close the distance to the floating red fortress. As they descend, they notice the structure is eerily covered in blooming red spider lilies, a sign of impending death. Our boy and his teammates finally hit solid ground, feeling a sudden, deep gratitude for the return of gravity. Aeon manifests to clarify their mission, explaining that they must locate the treasury hidden deep within these ruins. This treasury houses a specific function that can generate a skyhole, their only ticket back to the human world. She adds a cryptic warning, telling Toma that he mustn't defeat the boss, or the ruins will simply vanish. Toma is left dumbfounded when he looks up to see massive, red-scaled beasts standing guard right in their path. These monsters are wreathed in haunting purple flames, looking like high-tier threats that could easily wipe out a city. Ryuga tries to snap him out of it, but Toma is already walking toward the beasts with a strange look. Instead of attacking, he reaches out and gently touches the snout of the terrifying monster as if greeting a friend. Toma realizes the beast is actually petrified, a grim reminder of the basilisk's terrifying power. It turns out the entire path is a graveyard of stone statues, all frozen in their final moments. Suddenly, a relic belonging to the basilisk pulses with a sinister purple light, signaling a trap. The stone begins to crack as the monsters groan, waking up from their forced slumber. These high-tier threats are back for blood, but Ryuga is more than ready to vent some frustration. Mikuto tries to play it cool, ordering the boys to handle the heavy lifting while she stays safe. With a sudden snap of fingers, the space warps, catching the bottom-tier S-rank hunter completely off guard. She screams in terror as she realizes her teammates have vanished, leaving her alone with the hungry beasts. Our boy and Ryuga find themselves engulfed in a blue light, teleported away before they can even swing. They land in a serene, watery hall filled with ancient pillars, miles away from their panicked teammate. Toma and Ryuga are dumbfounded, wondering where they just landed and what happened to their teammate. Their heads snap upward as a mysterious figure on a pillar explains the mechanics of this warped dimension. The white-haired follower greets them with a chilling smile, welcoming our boy to the sky hole. Ryuga isn't here for pleasantries, demanding to know if this creep is responsible for their missing friend. The follower just shrugs, admitting he ditched Makoto because she lacked a weapon relic and was basically useless. Miles away, the poor girl is currently playing a deadly game of tag with some hungry dungeon monsters. Ryuga loses his cool and lunges forward, determined to turn this trash-tier kidnapper into a pile of ash. Toma quickly steps in to hold him back, sensing that their opponent is far from being a human. As green flames erupt around the figure, Toma realizes this guy is cut from the same cloth as Annihilation. It turns out they're facing a sentient relic that managed to manifest its own physical body to walk. Ryuga doesn't care about the guy's origins and launches a reckless assault on the relic human. The follower just sneers, refusing to be compared to a mindless tool like Annihilation. He summons the gold-grade relic Icarus, telling the hunters they should just drop dead and leave their treasures. As he takes to the sky, Aeon warns our boy that those wings aren't just for show. She realizes the danger is real, sensing the lethal speed of the high-speed blade wings. The smug follower reaches for another weapon, clearly enjoying the look of fear on their faces. He pulls out a familiar golden dagger, ready to show them what a real warrior can do. Toma is dumbfounded when he recognizes the blade as gluttony, the same relic Gaia once used against him. The creep confirms he knows all about the White Dragon ruins and the loot Toma dragged out. It turns out his mission is simple, confiscating every powerful relic from the hands of unworthy humans. The smug follower claims his speed is on a whole different level compared to the trash-tier hunters they've faced. Ryuga scoffs, telling Toma that the guy is a moron for trying to use multiple relics at once. He explains that the aura drive should just cancel out, making the weapons weaker and useless in combat. The follower just laughs at their logic, clearly hiding a trick that defies the laws of their world. He mocks how inconvenient humans are before unleashing a massive, chaotic explosion right in their faces. The entire area erupts in a violent blast of mana, catching the hunters completely off guard. Our boy and Ryuga are sent reeling, barely managing to brace themselves against the sudden, overwhelming heat. The follower finds the flaming relic to be quite a wild horse, enjoying the chaos he's causing. Toma is dumbfounded, realizing the creep is simultaneously activating relics that even the strongest masters can't handle. Even Aeon is wary, noting that a relic using another relic is a total wild card they can't predict. Toma realizes this freak is likely stronger than Annihilation, but he isn't the same weakling he used to be. Our boy has leveled up enough to take on a relic human without even needing his main blade. He tells Ryuga to back off since normal attacks won't work, but Ryuga isn't about to play sidekick. Both of them ignite their spirits, preparing to unleash Purgatory Masamune and the legendary swordless creation technique. The follower just smirks, clearly unimpressed by the desperate struggle of these trash-tier humans. They launch their combined assault, a roaring flame meeting an adamantine edge in a desperate bid for victory. The villain just laughs, mocking how inconvenient it is to be human while brandishing his overwhelming power. Toma tries one last time to warn his hot-headed rival about getting caught in the inevitable crossfire. Ignoring the danger, they push their mana to the absolute limit, eyes burning with a fierce, unwavering determination. It's a total do-or-die moment as they throw everything they've got into one final, explosive strike. Toma gets knocked back, realizing that the gap in power is even wider than he first feared. Ryuga screams for our boy to stay back while he charges in with his blade wreathed in flames. He demands the villain get away from Makoto, refusing to let another comrade fall to this monster. Ryuga unleashes his blazing fire roaring slash, hoping the sheer heat can melt through the enemy's defenses. Gritting his teeth, he pours every ounce of his S-rank mana into the strike to blast him away. He follows up with a massive roaring flame eruption, turning the entire sky into a sea of fire. Despite the inferno, the follower stands tall among the pillars, looking more bored than actually hurt. The flames lick at his robes, yet the trash-tier attacks don't seem to leave a single mark. The villain just smiles and mockingly asks if the hot-headed hunter is finally satisfied with his pathetic display. Ryuga is completely dumbfounded, unable to process how his strongest move didn't even leave a scratch. The follower hovers above, mocking Ryuga for ignoring the warnings our boy Toma gave him earlier. He laughs off the relic's true name, calling the trash-tier skills absolute nonsense that no one corrected. Looking down with pure arrogance, the villain invites another attack while reminding him that resistance is utterly meaningless. Ryuga can only grit his teeth in rage, feeling the sting of being completely outclassed by this monster. Refusing to back down, he ignites his fire mana, determined to prove his own way of fighting works. With his eyes glowing, he prepares to unleash his final trump card to burn this smug follower. Suddenly, Toma leaps into the chaos, making the villain realize that the spirit Aeon is the real prize. The follower offers a twisted deal, promising to let our boy go home if he just surrenders Aeon. A massive explosion rocks the area as Toma stands his ground against the overwhelming power of the relic. The sheer force sends him skidding back, proving that even with his growth, this fight is far from over. Toma is caught off guard as a massive golden blade descends with enough force to shatter the ground. He realizes that the relic's power fluctuates wildly, depending on the sheer malice of the person wielding it. The white-haired follower mocks our boy, asking if he is just another fool seeking revenge for fallen allies. The villain floats arrogantly, claiming that past betrayals and holding grudges are beneath a being of his stature. He reveals his true twisted motivation is simply to earn a bit of praise from his master, Basilisk. Looking completely unhinged, he calls his obsession love and demands that Aeon join him in his madness. Aeon watches with a heavy heart, realizing that Icarus has not changed at all since the old days. Toma feels the pressure mounting, but he knows his weapon's adaptability is the key to turning this around. He initiates a weapon reconstruction, transforming his massive blade into a flexible adamantine maul blade to counter the speed. With a powerful snap, he swings the segmented weapon to swat away the incoming projectiles like flies. Icarus is caught off guard as Tuma's projectile whizzes right past his head. A massive explosion rocks the area, but the villain remains completely unfazed by the flashy display. The follower mocks Aeon's choice, claiming that Tuma's attacks are just useless, explosive noise. He decides he's finished playing around and casually discards the weapon like it's total trash tier loot. Our boy isn't backing down though, tightening his grip as his segmented blade hums with divine energy. With fire in his eyes, Toma prepares to show this arrogant follower exactly what real power looks like. He lunges forward, whipping the adamantine maul blade in a wide, lethal arc that tears through the air. The golden segments lash out, shattering the villain's illusions and forcing him to finally take things seriously. Icarus is absolutely dumbfounded, realizing the sheer speed of the strike is far beyond his initial calculations. As Aeon watches, Toma breaks the sound barrier, using pure centrifugal force to crush his opponent's ego. Icarus realizes the strike has enough power to actually threaten him, catching him completely off guard. He quickly regains his composure, taunting our boy that raw power is useless if he can't land a hit. The villain plays mind games, reminding Toma that every second wasted puts his friends in deeper trouble. Toma thinks of Mikuto's terrified face, knowing he can't afford to let his teammates down right now. Icarus continues to dance around the heavy blade, treating the life-or-death struggle like a mere warm-up. He effortlessly deflects the next strike, convinced that Toma has already reached the limit of his abilities. Our boy just grits his teeth and charges, declaring that he's putting an end to this farce immediately. Instead of relying on his heavy maul, he activates his swordless creation to manifest a brand new weapon. He calls upon the dragon scale blade, a weapon forged from divine energy, to cut through the nonsense. Icarus finally sees the true nature of Tuma's power, and can't help but smirk at the sudden escalation. Icarus mocks our boy, suggesting he should have brought out the big guns much sooner. Turns out, the villain was just waiting for this moment to reveal his own hidden preparation. Toma is completely dumbfounded when he realizes the enemy is wielding the legendary blade, known as Balmung. Sensing a catastrophic shift in the mana, Aeon screams for her partner to retreat before it's too late. The two clash mid-air, but Icarus sneers that the dragon scale blade is nothing but trash-tier garbage. He unleashes the Draki Saga, a specialized dragon-slaying relic designed to shred through divine energy like paper. Their weapons collide, but it's clear our boy is struggling against the overwhelming pressure of the Slayer's edge. In a flash, the villain cuts through Tuma's defense, leaving him wide open and tasting his own blood. As Toma falls, Icarus laughs, savoring the look of pure despair on the face of his opponent. Standing over his broken foe, the monster gloats that Aeon's chosen champion has finally been put down. Tuma's agony echoes through the ruins as he's pushed to his absolute limit by the enemy's overwhelming power. Aeon explains that the legendary Balmung was forged specifically to slaughter dragon kin, making it our boy's worst nightmare. As Icarus prepares the finishing blow, the spirit realizes they've been lured into a perfectly crafted death trap. Suddenly, Ryuga bursts onto the scene, intercepting the lethal strike and forcing the villain to back off. The monster lands gracefully, clearly annoyed that his easy kill was interrupted by another pesky hunter. Icarus glares at the newcomer, calling him a brat who doesn't know when to stay out of trouble. Ryuga just smirks and thanks Toma for buying enough time for him to finally get his engine running. Bleeding out on the floor, Toma can only watch as his hot-headed ally prepares to take the stage. Ryuga screams as he ignites his life flame armor, a desperate technique that burns through his very existence. Icarus isn't impressed, mocking the hunter for being the kind of idiot who would actually use such a suicidal move. Aeon watches Ryuga, thinking the red-haired boy is being incredibly reckless with his life. She knows this power-up will make him a beast, but the cost is simply too high to pay. Ryuga is literally burning through his lifespan, leaving him with only minutes before his heart stops. Our boy Toma is completely dumbfounded, unable to believe his ally would go this far for him. Aeon shifts her focus back, realizing Toma's dominant shoulder is shredded and essentially useless now. With his pivot leg also out of commission, the spirit concludes that their situation is officially trash tier. Yet, despite the carnage, a small smile creeps onto her face as she feels a spark of hope. Seeing Ryuga's sacrifice, she realizes that the bond between these hunters might be Toma's ultimate catalyst. Toma internally curses Ryuga's stupidity, wondering why he'd throw his life away in such a suicidal manner. Reaching out with trembling fingers, he refuses to give up, determined to find a way back into the fight. Our boy Toma grits his teeth, refusing to let his injury stop him from struggling against the odds. Meanwhile, Hakogami arrives at the site, realizing the ruins he was tracking were definitely located right here. The nearby hunters are left completely dumbfounded, staring at the empty wasteland where a massive structure once stood. When Hakogami demands confirmation, the terrified scout squeals that the entire fortress was swallowed by the sky. Turns out, a massive sky hole manifested out of nowhere, devouring the ruins before vanishing into thin air. Hakogami clicks his tongue in annoyance, sensing that the situation has officially spiraled into something much worse. He gazes into the cosmic void, worrying that Toma isn't nearly ready to handle that level of hell. Deciding there's no other choice, the examiner prepares to use his own power to force the portal open. Suddenly, his phone buzzes with a call from Kiseki, the top-tier zenith who always seems to know everything. Kiseki tells him to hold off, believing that Toma and the others must survive this trial on their own. Kiseki plays it cool on the phone, claiming his ability to read fate isn't actually that big of a deal. Sitting amidst the oblivious crowd, the zenith explains that they've reached a critical branching point in history. If they intervene now, the crisis ends, but Toma and the others will never reach their true potential. Hakogami grits his teeth, realizing they don't have the luxury of time, yet Kiseki remains unshakable. Back in the hellscape, our boy is a bloody mess but refuses to let his training go to waste. The zenith reminds him that the kid's potential is already light years beyond what anyone originally expected. With a piercing gaze, Kiseki decides he's going to put everything on the line and bet on them. Meanwhile, the battlefield is absolute chaos as Ryuga ignites his soul to keep the winged monster at bay. Ryuga lets out a guttural roar, pushing his life flame armor to its absolute breaking point to protect his friend. He charges headfirst into Icarus, determined to buy every second possible for Toma to recover and strike back. Ryuga pushes his life flame armor to the absolute limit, his eyes burning with a terrifying, suicidal resolve. Icarus just watches with a smug grin, admitting that even he shouldn't take a hit like that head-on. The winged monster dives from the sky, aiming to crush Ryuga before his flames can grow any hotter. Ryuga's hand sizzles against his own blade, but the physical pain is nothing compared to his burning spirit. Icarus mocks him, saying hell just burned to ash since he doesn't even know his relic's true name. Standing firm in the water, Ryuga tells the trash-tier villain to shut his mouth and just keep fighting. He lunges upward like a desperate son, determined to drag the arrogant Icarus down to hell with him. Their weapons clash in a violent explosion of sparks, neither side willing to give an inch of ground. Icarus finds it annoying how people ready to die always put up such a frustratingly good fight. He wonders what the point is if Ryuga dies winning, but Ryuga is already past the point of caring. Ryuga grits his teeth and tells the enemy to shut up, his resolve hardening despite the searing pain. He remembers his vow to surpass the zenith, and finally claim the title of the top S-rank hunter. To our boy Ryuga, a life spent losing is a life that holds absolutely no value at all. Toma watches from the sidelines, completely dumbfounded by the sheer level of desperation radiating from his comrade. Aeon observes the scene, recalling the moment Ryuga first laid eyes on Toma, and sensed something familiar. It turns out, Ryuga recognized the same scent of selfless love that Toma carries for his sister Suzu. He saw how Toma threw himself against trash-tier monsters without a single thought for his own safety. Aeon realizes Ryuga was likely saved by love once, and now burns his life to repay that debt. The weight of this realization hits Toma like a physical blow, shaking him to his very core. Seeing Ryuga's sacrifice gives Toma all the more reason to force his broken body back into the fight. Tuma lets out a guttural roar, fueled by a desperate need to survive this absolute nightmare. Even with a useless pivot leg, our boy forces himself to stand before the overwhelming power of Icarus. He attempts a reckless, swordless creation, using his own weapon relics as raw materials for one final gamble. His eyes widen as he feels a strange, terrifying power beginning to take shape from the fusion process. Suddenly, a massive backlash sends him flying, his body reaching its limit against the crushing divine pressure. Icarus simply watches with cold indifference, totally unimpressed by the hunter's failing struggle to stay relevant. As Toma collapses, a sinister black smoke begins to leak from the remains of his shattered weapon. Deep within the blade, a mysterious persona manifests and warns him against letting the dark energy flow inward. Toma is completely dumbfounded as he realizes he is actually hearing Gluttony's voice from within the relic. Icarus notes that our boy has finally connected with the dangerous soul residing within that cursed black sword. The spirit within the blade screams in agony, terrified that our boy will just discard her like everyone else. She vividly remembers the trash-tier hunters who only used her as a disposable tool to trigger cheap explosions. Crying out in total despair, the relic begs to be left alone, never having asked for this cursed existence. Toma ignores the searing pain and grips the hilt, refusing to let go of his only remaining hope. Ion watches the struggle intently, urging him to prove that his compassion can truly guide this sorrowful soul. Blood spills from his mouth as the blade vibrates violently, testing if his broken body can handle the pressure. He can feel the overwhelming grief pouring out of the weapon, finally realizing she is more than a tool. Desperate to back up Ryuga, he pleads with the spirit to lend him her power for one final stand. Seeing a glimpse of her true form in the reflection, he understands that her pain is deeply personal. Our boy resolves to unleash his biggest explosion yet, challenging the spirit to hold on through the blast. Toma looks at the blade with soft eyes, telling the spirit that she is actually quite kind. He points out that if she truly wanted him gone, she wouldn't be holding back her power. The sword spirit is dumbfounded, her eyes widening as our boy sees right through her defensive walls. He recalls the moment Icarus discarded her, noting the heartbreakingly sad aura she radiated back then. Toma realizes she only hurts because she trusted her previous master to finally treat her right. The spirit looks away in shame, her past betrayals still weighing heavily on her fractured soul. With a burning gaze, Toma asks her to trust him just once more, promising he'll never let go. She stares back, stunned by the sincerity of a human who doesn't see her as a tool. Toma ignores the spirit's frantic mental screams to leave her alone, tightening his grip on the hilt. The trauma finally boils over into a massive explosion, as their souls connect in a blinding flash. Icarus descends from the heavens like a cruel god, looking down at the absolute carnage below. Ryuga is a bloody mess, but he wears a triumphant grin for finally landing a meaningful blow. Even though it is just a tiny crack on the legendary shield, it represents his entire soul. He gasps for air, desperately trying to summon enough strength for one final, desperate strike. Icarus just scoffs at the effort, mockingly praising him for trading his life for a single scratch. The villain swings his massive blade with casual ease, intending to erase the annoying hunter for good. The impact is devastating, sending a spray of blood into the air as Ryuga reaches his limit. Icarus remains completely unfazed, confident that his partner Aeon will simply repair the minor damage later. A massive explosion of mana erupts behind them, signaling the end of the brave hunter's final stand. It is over in an instant, as Icarus hoists the broken warrior into the air like a trophy. Thick black smoke chokes the air as the aftermath of the previous clash leaves the battlefield in total ruin. Our boy Toma refuses to let go of the blade, proving his soul is cut from a different cloth. Even though she finds him annoying, Gluttony finally relents and tells him to do whatever he wants with her. Toma offers a quick thanks as his eyes ignite with a fierce yellow glow, signaling their souls have synchronized. He focuses every drop of his remaining mana, preparing to turn his very body into a vessel for destruction. A massive explosion of energy erupts from the center of the ruins, catching everyone in a blinding flash. Icarus stands there completely dumbfounded, unable to comprehend how a mere human could possess such terrifying, raw power. Despite the shock, the villain keeps a lethal grip on Ryuga, who is barely clinging to his life. Toma lunges through the flames with a burning blade, knowing he only has a few seconds left to act. With a roar of pure defiance, he swears that he absolutely won't let Ryuga die on his watch today. Nox starts by apologizing, revealing he won't be able to provide any blood for the upcoming week. He explains that a mandatory birthday banquet for the director will involve far too much drinking. Since he'll be consuming alcohol, he claims his blood will need 7 days to finally clear up. The silver-haired noble is clearly bothered, asking if attending such a trash-tier event is even necessary. Nox plays the part of a helpless administrator, claiming he lacks the influence to skip the party. Hearing this, the noble is dumbfounded that someone from the Valanek family is being treated so poorly. Our boy realizes the bait has been taken and pretends to be too afraid to say anything more. The noble loses his cool and grabs Nox's hands, demanding he speak up about his struggles immediately. He demands to know who dares to disrespect him, his protective instincts flaring up just as planned. Nox leans in to whisper his next lie, knowing he now has a powerful shield to hide behind. Nox whispers that a marriage proposal from the Ryan family is the real reason for his current mistreatment. The silver-haired noble is visibly shaken, wondering if such a proposal could actually cause this much trouble. He stares intensely, realizing the political weight of the situation is heavier than he first thought. Our boy explains that since the Ryans are barred from council meetings, marrying in would kill any career prospects. He acts defeated, claiming he's being ghosted now because he has absolutely zero potential left in their eyes. Nox apologizes for dumping his trash-tier problems on the noble while he's already feeling under the weather. Scotty is completely moved by this display of humility, feeling a deep sense of pity for the administrator. Behind that fake smile, Nox is cold and calculated, knowing exactly which heartstrings to pull. He continues the act, claiming he knows his place and that marriage was never his choice anyway. The noble tries to reassure him, completely unaware that he's being played like a fiddle by a master. Nox leaves with a lingering fake smile, promising he'll definitely have a word with his father. The moment he's alone, his face drops into a cold, predatory stare that reveals his true nature. Hess internally fuming, calling them scumbags while recalling how he pretended he couldn't live without them. Our boy stalks down the hallway, determined to exploit them all so he never ends up like Autumn. The narrative shifts to a sun-drenched mansion, a stark contrast to the dark schemes brewing inside. Everything is set perfectly in the dining hall, dripping with the wealth of the high-tier elite. Doran bursts in with a wave, greeting Adele with the kind of energy only a socialite possesses. He makes his way to the table, pleasantly surprised to see she's already waiting for him. Adele adjusts her glasses, calmly mentioning that the lunch slot was specifically chosen to fit her needs. Doran just laughs, teasing her that her strict punctuality would make it impossible to ever grab dinner. Doran sips his drink, casually dropping the latest gossip about the upcoming arrival of a high-ranking noble. Adele remains unfazed as she hears that Grand Duchess Charlotte is finally making her way to the estate. He is dumbfounded by her lack of curiosity, wondering how she can be so indifferent to such news. She simply explains that the young master's personal affairs are none of her concern, keeping things strictly professional. Doran grabs a snack, noting how the rest of the staff is losing their minds over a new mistress. When he suggests that Gray might actually be disappointed, Adele finally shows a flicker of genuine surprise. Looking at her reflection, she realizes the very idea of Gray getting married feels completely wrong and alien. He leans in with a smirk, trying to bait her into admitting she is at least a little interested. While he dreams of a vacation during the honeymoon, she coldly reminds him he will be stuck working. The poor guy is absolutely crushed, wondering how she can deliver such a brutal reality check so casually. Adele is completely dumbfounded, her usual professional mask slipping as she processes the ridiculous rumors about the young master. Our boy Doran is practically melting into the table, lamenting how Gray supposedly described his bride as a soulmate. He is convinced the world is ending, but she bluntly tells him he is just falling for trash-tier lies. She takes a calm sip of her drink, trying to regain her composure while ignoring his over-the-top dramatic flair. After a heavy silence, she finally addresses him by name, her curiosity clearly starting to win the internal battle. She finally cracks and asks if there is any actual truth to the rumors about the young master's marriage. Doran instantly perks up with a mischievous glint, absolutely thrilled that he finally baited her into the gossip. She tries to play it cool, telling herself she is only asking because he is so desperate to talk. He explains that powerful nobles are arriving, and reveals that Gray actually dated the Duchess in the past. Adele feels a strange knot in her stomach, wondering how a breakup could ever truly be on good terms. Doran teases Adele for being totally clueless about romance, claiming love needs obstacles to actually grow. He notes that the couple had it too easy with everyone's blessing, leaving zero room for any real excitement. Adele grips her skirt tightly, questioning what could have possibly strengthened their bond if they never faced any hardships. She lets out a heavy sigh, concluding that they simply fizzled out until the relationship reached its natural end. A sudden thought strikes her, and she begins to wonder why she feels such a weird sense of relief. Doran leans in close, catching her off guard as he prepares to pivot the conversation back toward her. He stares deep into her eyes, noticing a flicker of emotion that makes him stop dead in his tracks. Suddenly, a cold voice interrupts their moment, as a powerful noble makes a perfectly timed, yet terrifying entrance. Doran is visibly shaken while the silver-haired noble greets them, instantly turning the room's atmosphere ice cold. Both of them are left completely dumbfounded, realizing their private chat was just overheard by the most dangerous person. Doran stands there completely frozen, unable to process the terrifying pressure of the noble who just interrupted them. Our boy flashes back to the heat of battle, remembering how he shattered the enemy's trash-tier logic. Icarus screams out for his master as he realizes his dragon-slaying pride is being ripped away. The chaos finally settles as Toma stands tall, flanked by the two spirits who never once doubted him. He stares down at the broken villain, proving that a porter's grit beats any stolen legendary power. Every inch of his body is screaming in protest, but the adrenaline is the only thing keeping him upright. Suddenly, the sheer exhaustion hits him like a truck, forcing him to drop his weapon and collapse. He looks up at the sentient relic and calls her Brigitte, finally acknowledging her soul instead of her power. With a weary smile, he lets them both know that he couldn't have survived this hell alone. Brigitte is left utterly dumbfounded, never expecting a human to treat a discarded weapon with such genuine warmth. Brigitte remembers how her previous master treated her like trash-tier equipment, calling her a billion-dollar dud. After Toma offers his genuine gratitude, she stands frozen as her cold heart finally starts to thaw. She tries to play it cool, muttering that our boy is just being freaking annoying to hide her embarrassment. Toma is completely dumbfounded by her reaction, not realizing he just did something no other master ever bothered with. She loses her composure and screams at him to stop staring while her face turns bright red. Turning away, she admits to herself that being thanked is a feeling she never thought she would experience. Aeon notes that this tiny spark of trust is actually a sprout of love, beginning to bloom. He gets a bit too intense about nurturing that bond, making Brigitte label the ancient spirit a total creep. The moment of peace is short-lived as Toma looks over at Ryuga, who is still barely clinging to life. Ryuga grits his teeth through the agony, refusing to let his flame go out just yet. Toma swings the black relic, finally realizing why Mikuto was so hyped about its insane, overwhelming power. Ryuga watches from the ground, completely dumbfounded by the sheer monstrous strength our boy is putting on display. Even while cornered, Icarus mocks him for being an amateur who doesn't even know his weapon's true name. The weight of his failure hits hard as Ryuga collapses, feeling like a trash-tier hunter compared to Toma. Our boy rushes over to his side, desperately calling out to make sure his friend hasn't died yet. He lets out a relieved sigh, genuinely happy that his comrade managed to survive the brutal encounter. However, he quickly scolds Ryuga, insisting that throwing his life away is never the right way to win. Ryuga struggles to respond, his pride as an elite hunter stung by the concern of a former porter. Toma just laughs and praises him, claiming they only survived because Ryuga acted like a true S-rank hero. Despite the encouragement, Ryuga grits his teeth, feeling utterly pathetic for needing to be saved like this. Ryuga snaps and grabs Toma, calling him a seaweed-haired bastard for always stealing the spotlight. Hez absolutely fuming because our boy keeps snatching the final blow while he looks like trash. Toma tries to defend himself, explaining that his best relics were either discharged or just recently bonded. Brigitte watches the two idiots bicker, wondering if she really chose the right weirdo to be her master. Aeon just laughs, sensing Toma's genuine warmth slowly soaking into the hearts of everyone around him. It's like a gentle rain finally hitting parched earth, causing flowers to bloom in a once-dead soul. She realizes that true love isn't a tool for showing off, unlike what the arrogant Icarus believed. The mood shifts instantly when Ryuga remembers their teammate Mikuto is still missing in the ruins. They turn back to the battlefield, desperately searching for any clue that might lead them to their friend. Suddenly, Toma spots a mysterious purple core pulsing within the remains of their fallen enemy. Toma stares at the purple sphere, recalling how Icarus mentioned this specific item before his fall. In a flashback, Icarus boasted that serving his master would grant a relic spirit, a physical human vessel. Brigitte looks down, her heart heavy as she realizes the dark price of the body she once craved. Our boy finally connects the dots, realizing this sphere is the key to turning relics into living humans. Ryuga snaps him out of it, screaming that finding Mikuto is way more important than some trash-tier orb. Suddenly, a severed hand on the ground begins to twitch, proving the nightmare isn't over just yet. Toma and Ryuga freeze in horror as the fallen enemy's remains start pulsing with a sinister, lingering energy. Even while dying, Icarus wears a twisted grin, mocking them and refusing to go out without a fight. The hunters realize they've been played when Icarus reveals his final, suicidal trump card to bury them all. High above, the entire dungeon begins to collapse as Icarus prepares to drop the ruins like a hammer. The sky hole opens directly above the Hunter Bureau, aiming to wipe out humanity's most critical command center. Panic erupts inside the headquarters as the staff realizes they are the primary target for the dungeon's fall. The director tries to maintain order, insisting they have protocols for this nightmare scenario despite the mounting pressure. He orders an immediate S-rank summon, only to hear the hunter won't come because fate isn't calling. The director stands there absolutely dumbfounded, realizing their strongest asset just abandoned them in their darkest hour. Professionalism goes out the window as the entire room descends into a frantic, screaming mess of pure desperation. He tries to offer a baseless hunch for comfort, but his staff is busy begging for a real evacuation. Meanwhile, Icarus mocks them with his final breath, relishing the thought of the bureau being crushed under stone. Our boy Ryuga refuses to waver, knowing they must find the boss to make these falling ruins finally vanish. Brigitte remains silent and overwhelmed, feeling the weight of the chaos her former master has unleashed upon the world. Toma looks at his battered body, wondering if he can even keep standing after that absolute nightmare of a clash. Icarus just laughs like a total maniac, finding the impending destruction of the bureau way too entertaining to miss. Even as his arm crumbles to ash, the villain sneers that they should just get eaten and die already. Finally, the trash-tier antagonist disintegrates into nothingness, leaving behind only the echoes of his spiteful, fading laughter. Our boy doesn't waste a single second, sprinting deeper into the ruins alongside a grimly determined Ryuga. They both know that if they don't end this now, the entire city above is as good as gone. Suddenly, the pair stops dead in their tracks as a massive, glowing eye stares back from the darkness. The true boss, Flame Peak Serpent Magnax, reveals its volcanic body that seems to stretch on for miles. Ryuga realizes Toma is losing way too much blood and orders him to find Mikuto for some recovery potions. The serpent lets out a bone-chilling roar, signaling the start of a final boss fight that looks completely impossible. A mysterious hooded figure suddenly drops from the ceiling like a guardian angel amidst the chaos. Toma and Ryuga are completely dumbfounded as the newcomer positions himself right above the serpent's massive head. Turns out it's Mikuto, looking totally exhausted but clearly ready to put in some serious work. He reveals a massive, gold-trimmed scythe that radiates an absolutely overwhelming amount of divine energy. Balancing perfectly on his weapon, Mikuto prepares to unleash a skill that might actually save their skins. He invokes Heaven's Prison Eyeball, sending a massive grid of blue light crashing down on the beast. The serpent shrieks in agony as the energy cage begins to constrict around its volcanic body. High above the battlefield, a strange red geometric mass begins to pulse with an ominous, suffocating power. The structure starts to fracture, signaling that the dungeon's collapse is entering its final, deadliest phase. Suddenly, a massive red rift tears through the sky, threatening to swallow the entire city below. Debris rains down on the terrified crowd as ominous red spider lilies begin to bloom across the lobby floor. The staff is completely dumbfounded, realizing the massive dungeon that threatened the city has vanished into thin air. Looking up, they see the sky hole finally swirling shut, leaving everyone wondering if the nightmare is truly over. The bureau director points toward the sky, his face pale as he witnesses something he never thought possible. It's Mikuto, hovering through the air while keeping our boy Toma and Ryuga safe inside protective energy spheres. Despite the victory, Mikuto looks absolutely drained, his eyes reflecting the heavy toll of using such high-tier magic. Elsewhere, Doran contemplates the possibility of a mental regression, wondering if his target has truly lost their edge. He politely hands Adele her utensil, masking his growing suspicion with the grace of a seasoned high-society player. He warns her to be careful with her grip, while Adele simply offers a quiet word of thanks. Adele pauses, feeling a strange flicker of intuition as Doran continues to analyze her every single move. Adele notices Doran avoiding her gaze, making her wonder what the guy is actually hiding behind that mask. She walks through the sprawling estate grounds, the weight of the high society game pressing down on her shoulders. Adjusting her glasses, she maintains her professional cool while keeping her senses sharp for any incoming trouble. Looking up at the darkening clouds, she silently notes that the gloomy weather perfectly matches the tense atmosphere. Suddenly, she stops in her tracks when a cheerful voice breaks her focus and calls out to her. Turning around, she finds herself face to face with a vibrant noblewoman who seems far too energetic for this place. The stranger asks if she is the new aide, immediately identifying her role within the mansion's complex hierarchy. Before she can even react, the woman grabs our hands and gushes about how wonderful it is to meet. She continues to shower Adele with praise, calling her position as a personal aide something truly admirable and rare. The bubbly noble introduces herself as Charlotte from the Herok Empire, adding a new player to this dangerous game. Charlotte mentions hearing plenty about her, noting that our girl looks exactly like the portraits she's seen. Keeping her cool, Adele confirms her identity while secretly wondering how this bubbly noble knows her full name. A sense of unease washes over her, because this entire encounter feels way too staged to be natural. She questions why a high-status state guest is hanging around such a trash-tier, shabby place just for her. As the praise continues, she plays the part of the humble aide, while analyzing every word for hidden traps. Another noblewoman from Carlo joins the fray, claiming that Adele's reputation for competence is known far and wide. They start listing her massive achievements, like traveling to distant lands to secure rare chemicals for the kingdom. The gushing doesn't stop as they credit her for sourcing legendary sapphire necklaces that dazzled the entire court. Hearing them discuss her success with a major shipping accident makes her realize just how much they've investigated. She concludes that drawing this much heat from the nobility is never good, regardless of their true motives. Adele decides it's time to bounce, since her past work wasn't even that impressive to begin with. She offers a polite thanks for the praise while trying to find a way to excuse herself immediately. Charlotte just keeps gushing about how Gray has an amazing eye for talent, leaving our girl totally dumbfounded. The nobles start prying into how she even met Gray, making Adele feel like she's in a trash-tier interrogation. When they offer tea and cookies, Adele tries to dodge by claiming she's busy and predicting a sudden rainstorm. Realizing her coldness might backfire, she pivots to a fake excuse about a meeting with the treasury head. Just as she turns to leave, a hand suddenly clamps down on her arm, stopping her dead in her tracks. The sheer grip strength is insane, making Adele wonder if this noblewoman is hiding some high-tier physical power. She looks back to find Charlotte acting completely out of character, her friendly mask finally starting to slip. Adele senses the trap closing in, realizing that getting away from these people won't be as easy as planned. Gray finally makes his entrance, looking every bit the high-tier noble the crowd was just buzzing about. He arrives alongside a decorated officer, looking like they just stepped out of a high-stakes meeting with the Duke. As they approach the group, Adele feels the pressure mounting when Gray focuses his attention on Charlotte. Our girl is completely dumbfounded, questioning why this powerful man seems to be making a beeline for her. While the military noble plays the perfect gentleman with Carlo Noble, the underlying tension remains thick and suffocating. Suddenly, a sharp crack of a heel snapping ruins the moment, sending a wave of panic through the group. Charlotte's graceful facade nearly ends in a trash-tier disaster as she begins to plummet toward the hard ground. Before she can hit the dirt, Gray reacts with lightning speed, catching her in a firm, protective grip. He stares down at her with a chillingly calm expression, clearly unimpressed by the sudden lack of composure. Adele watches the scene with a cold sweat, realizing that navigating this noble circle is getting more dangerous. Adele catches her breath and thanks her savior, though the sudden physical contact leaves her feeling incredibly rattled. Charlotte laughs it off, claiming her clumsiness is just a recurring problem she can't seem to shake. Gray thinks back to advising Adele on her table manners, remembering when their interactions were much simpler. He recalls handing her a fork, a small moment of care that feels worlds away from this mess. Back then, he told her to be careful, always playing the role of the watchful, protective mentor. In the present, Gray finds this whole social charade completely suffocating and beneath his station. Suddenly, Adele is struck by a vivid, unknown pulse of energy that feels disturbingly unfamiliar and dangerous. Realizing she can't stay, she offers a quick apology to the group to make a swift escape. Our girl bows deeply, though a wave of unidentifiable unpleasantness makes her skin crawl as she leaves. She asks for their forgiveness and takes her leave, finally breaking away from the suffocating noble circle. Adele walks away, leaving behind an awkward tension that feels heavier than any trash-tier noble conversation. Our girl keeps her composure, but her eyes betray a cold, calculated focus on the chaos looming ahead. She realizes that just because things are getting weird, there is absolutely no reason to feel flustered. She thinks back to Gray, remembering a time when even his closest embrace failed to spark any real excitement. Even the memory of her own past despair feels distant, as if anger is just a useless, unnecessary emotion. To her, it is simple. She either finds a grand finale or faces a lonely, pathetic death while fleeing. The fuse is already lit, and she is prepared to walk through the fire to reach her goal. Reaching out for her fate, she views this dangerous path as nothing more than a simple, inevitable chore. With her mind made up, she grips the metaphorical rope, ready to pull the trigger on her next move. A sharp knock on the door signals that the time for reflection is over and the game begins. Adele enters the room, fully prepared to act as a shameless aide who uses Gray for her own ends. Her old boss, Manhwa, is already spiraling, wishing he could smack his past self for letting them ever meet. She tells him that self-flagellation is useless, while he mourns the loss of his most talented subordinate to another. The man is practically inconsolable, whining that he should have hidden her away before she was snatched up. He finally gets to the point, questioning why he should approve her costly maritime insurance and ship maintenance plan. Adele doesn't blink, calmly explaining that accepting the change is just the natural flow of the times. Manhwa remains wary, asking if she really trusts a northern swindler who only cares about playing dirty money games. He admits that with everyone signing up, Reworking the tax system now would be an absolute nightmare for him. Flashing a sharp professional smile, she offers a solution involving tax deductions and asks him to sign the papers. She realizes that she was the one who drove the enrollment rates up, making this entire trap unavoidable. Charlotte recalls the time Adele squeezed a massive payout from a trading company after Gray's accident. Flashing back a few months, Adele is absolutely floored by the sheer stupidity of the news she heard. She corners Gray and Doran, demanding to know why he'd buy a business that's already dead. Gray puts on a performance, acting like he's some noble savior who couldn't let a friend fall. Our girl is forced to play along, cringing at his fake deep friendship while her brain rots. He thinks he's a shark, bragging about snagging the continent's largest union for a 30% discount. Adela's inner demon is fighting for control as she barely resists the urge to deck the young master. Doran watches the fire start, questioning what use a half-spent fortune is for a ruined company. She drops a reality check, reminding him that a low price tag comes with a mountain of debt. The sheer scale of the legal and employment disasters makes her head throb with pure professional agony. Adele suddenly has a realization that hits her like a freight train. She snaps, telling the young master he's practically begging to be disowned, while Doran tries to calm her. Gray just smiles, finding it reassuring that she handles everything without him even needing to give instructions. She brings up the suspicious maritime risk insurance he signed, her professional instincts screaming that something is wrong. The more she thinks about the terms, the more she realizes this isn't just a bad deal. She demands to know where the documents from the trading company are, while Doran watches the chaos unfold. Our boy just shrugs, casually wondering where he might have tossed such a trivial contract. Reading the fine print, she discovers it's a trash-tier scam designed to let the company vanish with the cash. She can't believe these two are cut from the same cloth of pure financial incompetence. Her blood boils as she crushes the paper, while the two idiots just stand there looking completely dumbfounded. Gray explains that the previous owner hated the contract so much they didn't even bother looking into it. Adele sarcastically praises him for being so bold that he doesn't even check what he signs up for. She realizes the documents are likely in her room and decides to head back to investigate immediately. She slams the door behind her, leaving the two men in a cloud of her professional intensity. Doran wonders what she's actually looking for, but Gray just shrugs since they still have the original copy. As she walks, Adele knows this insurance is a scam in Carl, but might have a usable clause elsewhere. If her memory serves her right, there is a specific loophole that could turn this trash-tier deal around. Gray watches her departure, probably relieved that someone with an actual brain is handling the heavy lifting. Doran asks what the real plan is for the company, wondering if they are just burning through cash. He admits Adele is right about the bad reputation of maritime insurance, but they must think long-term. Gray realizes they eventually need to pull the Carl region into their sphere of influence to truly succeed. Adele flips through the trade insurance papers, convinced there is a way to squeeze value from this deal. When she finds the specific loophole, she realizes this is the golden ticket they have been searching for. She explains that the Bukeon Trading Company will be the ones footing the bill for the wrecked ships. Doran looks dumbfounded, wondering if a massive company like Bukeon would really let themselves be robbed like this. Our boy just smirks, knowing that in this trash-tier economy, the possibilities for a smart player are actually endless. He views the company as his personal property and is ready to settle the deal with the military. By acquiring the trade hub, they gain the infrastructure they lack, which is worth more than any gold. The plan is simple. Gray buys the company at a massive discount, while Klumt covers the actual damages. Adele notes that while the cost stays the same, they have bought something money cannot buy, a reputation. Adele points out that their target company is already knee-deep in maritime insurance and the kingdom's trade. Doran watches as Gray processes how imperial funds are basically flooding the local market right now. Adele tosses the documents, explaining how this insurance could turn a trash-tier reputation into a golden rescue. Gray shifts in his seat, wondering why such a perfect loophole hasn't been exploited by anyone else yet. He realizes that without a solid justification, even the most willing companies can't just hand over compensation. Adele reveals the contract's fine print, stating that any two vessels owned by the party must be compensated. Our boy's eyes light up as he realizes those two vessels could be literally anything he claims ownership of. He smirks, knowing the definition of an owned vessel is so ambiguous it's basically an invitation to cheat. Gray can't help but laugh, planning to shove those wrecked ships into the contract and rob them blind. Doran is dumbfounded, realizing that instead of being worried, our boy is actually getting excited by the gamble. Adele smirks, confident they can finally sweep the entire pot using these loophole-ridden terms. She just hopes the opposition isn't a bunch of trash-tier swindlers who'll refuse the payout. If her boss gets scammed under her watch, her standing in the empire would be toast. Gray suddenly grabs her cheeks, completely dumbfounded by the sheer scale of her hidden audacity. Our boy laughs, realizing Adele is a high-stakes gambler who's definitely cut from the same cloth. The plan works perfectly as the trading company pays every cent, fearing their reputation might crumble. With the swindler labels gone, Adele prepares to face Mensha and finalize their new maritime dominance. Standing alone in the rain, she lets the weight of her victory sink in for a moment. She turns her back on the past, her boots splashing through the puddles of a new era. A wave of relief hits her as she realizes she actually managed to pull it off. Our girl stands in the downpour, basking in the glow of another successful high-stakes gamble. She finally gives herself a pat on the back, knowing she played her cards exactly right. Her mind drifts back to the praise she received from Gray, the man who first recognized her talent. She realizes that joining his side was the lucky break that changed her entire trajectory forever. Gray's encouragement still rings in her ears, confirming she really is cut from the same cloth as him. Back in the present, she stares at the estate, ready to finally close the chapter on her past. Inside, Nox watches the rain, noting that Adele is finally cornering Mensha to settle their long-standing score. His subordinate asks for an update, sensing the heavy tension radiating from the meeting room just moments ago. Nox figures even a veteran like Mensha is tired of fighting against Adele's relentless and calculated pressure. He sighs at her legendary stubbornness, knowing she'll be heading home soon, with another massive victory secured. Nox watches the rain and remembers that Adele has always been this stubborn since they were little kids. He reflects on how all the siblings were pig-headed, but Adele's stubbornness was always focused on protecting them. Our boy recalls a young Adele constantly chasing them with an umbrella, acting more like a mother than a sister. Back then, Nox and his other sibling were just a couple of carefree troublemakers who didn't know any better. She would always find them hiding in the rain, demanding to know why they were being such little contrarians. Young Nox would just laugh and tell her that the freezing downpour actually felt refreshing and fun. Adele would just scream about how she was freezing to death while desperately trying to keep them dry. Looking back, Nox realizes that if they hadn't existed, Adele could have lived a much better and easier life. She wouldn't have had to trade her freedom on the streets just to look after her sick, coughing siblings. Ultimately, she chose to walk into a stifling orphanage of her own accord, just to give them a future. Even as a kid, our boy just wanted to know he was actually cherished by his older sister. He desperately needed reassurance that she wouldn't just abandon them when things got too difficult to handle. He remembers her constantly nagging them about catching a fever while she shielded them from the freezing rain. Even when she was furious, he knew deep down she would never actually let go of his hand. Back in reality, Adele is completely dumbfounded when she finds him standing right there in the downpour. Our boy ignores his own comfort and insists she takes his umbrella before she catches a deathly chill. She points out he's already soaked, but he stubbornly orders her to just take the damn thing anyway. Adele is confused why he's being so insistent, when he's the one who needs the cover much more. He simply tells her he'll manage, worried that her drenched clothes will never dry in this miserable weather. She just sighs and removes her fogged-up glasses, realizing her little brother has finally grown into a man. Our boy Nox starts fixing his gear, clearly preparing to drop some heavy truth on his sister. He drapes his own coat over Adele's shoulders, proving he's more worried about her than himself. Adele is totally dumbfounded by his silence and demands to know why he's acting so strange. She wipes her glasses and asks if he finally pulled off whatever secret stunt he's been planning. Nox tells her to stop playing dumb, noting how often she's been sneaking into Mensha's office. He admits he saw her laughing like a total lunatic earlier, sensing the darkness behind her mask. Adele just slides her glasses back on, trying to regain her composure as his words sink in. They stand there in a heavy silence, the rain drumming against the umbrella as they face the truth. Finally, he calls out her name, his voice barely audible over the downpour as he prepares a plea. Nox wonders if they can finally just live comfortably, admitting he understands her pain but wanting peace. Nox's hand trembles as he acknowledges the insane resolve it took for his sister to come this far. He realizes that telling Adele the truth about Autumn's death would only destroy any chance of her happiness. Gripping the umbrella handle, our boy begs her to finally let the memory of their brother rest in peace. He knows she's obsessed with revenge, but he's terrified of what this path will eventually do to her. Nox insists she's already successful enough to live comfortably without chasing these dangerous, secret schemes for her whole life. Adele looks completely dumbfounded that he'd dismiss her life's work as nothing more than pathetic, trash-tier background investigations. As lightning tears through the sky, she wonders if he really thinks her pain is just for show. The darkness of her nightmares reminds her that Autumn never once blamed her, making the guilt even heavier. She explains that some wounds never truly heal, and her heart is far too broken to ever move on. Nox turns his back on her, firmly refusing to comply while begging her to just let him be. He realizes she's so obsessed with their revenge that she looks ready to throw her life away. Our boy finally calls her his sister, hoping the word still holds some power over her. Adele is left dumbfounded, wondering if he truly views her agony as something so trivial. As tears stream down his face, he asks if she really compares his pain to a mere wounded finger. He looks her dead in the eye, questioning if he even counts as her sibling anymore. Rain splashes against the stone as the heavy silence between them becomes almost suffocating. Watching from a distance, Gray wonders what could possibly keep them talking in the middle of a downpour. He decides that Adele shouldn't be getting distracted, especially when she's cut from such a different cloth.